This House is in session.
Mr. Speaker, recommit government notices.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the Notaries Public Bill 2024.
First reading of bills recommitted.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Notaries Public Bill 2024.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read here first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Prior to the suspension of this honourable chamber, this House was in standing finance committee debating the estimates. To that we shall revert.
This House is now in standing finance committee.
Mr. Chairman, Head 27, in the amount of 21 million, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, in the amount of $21,537,564.
Honourable member for St. Michael West Central. Honourable member, St. Michael West Central.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. With your leave, I would like to request that members of my ministry join me in the well of Parliament for the consideration of the head on this particular ministry.
Permission granted, sir. Honourable Minister, before we proceed, I will outline the rules under which this debate will be conducted today. As Minister, you are given 10 minutes in your overview, and this will be followed by the Leader of the Opposition, who is also allotted 10 minutes. When your team, and you are free to call on any member of your team to answer any questions that may be asked, may be posed to you. I just want the team that before they begin to speak, they identify themselves with giving their name and the position which they hold within the ministry. And you only do this for the very first time that you are going to speak. Thereafter, you would just proceed to speak. Honourable members are fully aware of what the rules, but I will repeat for your benefit. You would indicate when you want to speak by your name cards over the mic. You are allowed 3 minutes for your opening remarks, and then you have to pose your first question. You are allowed 3 follow-up questions thereafter. Just let me say again to the Minister, after your initial opening remarks, any questions you're asked, you have 5 minutes to answer thereafter. Honourable Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the other members of my team and myself, certainly, I would like to express our thanks to you and obviously the officers of this chamber for facilitating this morning. Mr. Chairman, in moving ahead, I wish to set out the broad policy allocation for Head 27. The other members of the team here at the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport will also assist, of course, in answering the questions. The request is for 21.5 million. Of course, the breakdown is already contained in the estimates. We welcome this opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to come before you and the nation, not only to give you an account of our collective stewardship over the government's past financial year, but to inform you of our future activism through policies, programs, and activities. Mr. Chairman, over the next several hours, we will do so fully conscious that strategies and tactics we employed must of national necessity materialize in the very best interests of all the highly deserving citizens and the varying and associated sectors. Please be assured that we will willingly and enthusiastically undertake our national duty and obligation, keenly aware that every single day we routinely compete against the rest of the world in tourism and international transport. But we are never intimidated by what we are called upon to do, day in and day out, season in and season out. That is so because of our encouraging results tells us that we are on the right path and trajectory. Kindly note that I said we are encouraged, not satisfied, far less complacent. Mr. Chairman, the source of our encouragement are to be found in the tangible and visible awards Barbados has been winning, plus the number of airlines and vessels and their passengers that we have been attracting to Barbados in increasing numbers. We have reversed the decline of airlift into Barbados and return air seat capacity with the return of American Airlines from New York JFK Airport, which would have ended almost 7 years ago. Delta Airlines, which last flew from Atlanta to Barbados in 2017, an almost 7-year absence, will touch down at Grantley Adams International Airport on November 21st, 2024 to start a daily service. Delta has added a once-weekly flight from John F. Kennedy Airport on Saturdays, which will commence on December 23rd, 2024. In addition to that, these additional services from Delta, seasonal as they are, will increase seat capacity into Barbados by 30,000 seats. American Airlines will also be increasing the number of gateways from the United States. Effective November 5th of this year, American Airlines will be launching their daily non-stop service from New York's JFK Airport with a 737 aircraft with a seat capacity of 172. In addition, American Airlines will commence a Saturday service from Philadelphia to Barbados on November the 9th of this year with the A321 aircraft with 190 seats. These two American services will double the number of departure points in the United States and increase by at least 35,000 the number of seats into Barbados by American Airlines. The combined services from American and Delta will increase seasonal capacity into Barbados by 65,000 seats from the United States for this coming winter season. United Airlines will offer a year-round service from both Newark, New Jersey, and Washington, Dulles through 2024, with opportunities for additional capacity under review. American Airlines will maintain the 3 daily flights from Miami and a daily service from Charlotte through September 2024. However, the intention is to commence daily services from New York, which gives obviously additional boosts from the northeastern corridor. The increase in airlift and seat capacity would allow all tourism stakeholders to benefit from the thousands of visitors expected on the island. Mr. Chairman, the airlift strategy was comprehensively executed to drive more business to this destination for long-stay visitors and to complement cruise home porting as we expand our pre- and post-cruise stays. The strategy is also intended to meet the needs of future demand of new hotel rooms under construction and those to come on stream very shortly. The renewed efforts to increase capacity from the United States market is also a key component of our strategy to hedge against any possible external shocks in any of our main source markets. The increase in our seat capacity is also designed to ensure higher occupancies in the accommodation sector. A strong Behind the Gateway marketing campaign is already underway ahead of the new airlift into Barbados for the next winter season. This strategy, combined with our current initiative of launching our summer campaign at least 6 months ahead, should yield very positive results. The 2025 regatta campaign has also been launched to pair with the increased airlift next winter. The additional airlift, like existing airlift, does not have any minimum revenue guarantees. In simple language, the BTMI is not paying for any seats on any of the United States gateways, Mr. Chairman. Although we have been very successful with the additional airlift from the United States, we are still in discussions with other USA-based airlines to get additional airlift. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure very shortly that I will have, along with my team, further announcements to make in respect of additional USA airlift. Let me also indicate that we are vigorously working on new and expanded airlift opportunities from Canada. Latin America has been identified as a new and emerging market. We are pleased with the performance of that market, and our strategy of having a BTMI office in Panama has paid significant dividends and given Barbados the brand positioning required for the Latin American market. We have increased the airlift from once a week to 4 times per week, and the aircraft load factor continues to be very positive. Mr. Speaker, as we reflect on the achievements in our market in terms of their performance, the United Kingdom market achieved a record year, delivering 243,857 visitors in 2023. The market surpassed pre-COVID figures by 110%, indicating a full recovery and expansion beyond the pre-pandemic numbers. Aer Lingus has confirmed the extension of the 2023-24 season to May of this year, and that the winter 2024-25 Manchester to Barbados service has been loaded and is already on sale. This will be Aer Lingus's 4th season operating to Barbados. Mr. Chairman, British Airways operated a 777-300 with a larger business class cabin of 76 versus 56 seats for this winter, and British Airways will continue to operate one of its newest aircraft on this route for summer of this year. This initiative will result in an additional 10% increase in summer capacity. Barbados continues to collaborate with Virgin Atlantic as we celebrated their 25th anniversary, or the silver anniversary, last September. Virgin commenced a double service from London to Heathrow last January 10th, resulting in approximately 25 flights per week, 14, Mr. Chairman, dedicated to Barbados. And when I say dedicated to Barbados, flying from the UK into Barbados and returning to the United Kingdom. 6 flights were tagged to St. Vincent and Grenada, and 5, of course, from Manchester. Mr. Chairman, the work of the BTMA must also be lauded. In 2024, Barbados won the Best Tourist Board Award, for which I'm sure you are familiar with. The BTMI has also been shortlisted in Travel Trade Gazette, and obviously in terms of the Tourist Board of the Year category, and successfully won Best Caribbean Destination at the ICE Group Destination Awards. Mr. Speaker, and I can go on about the awards even more. However, as we look to our summer, we are focusing on new deliverables. We are going to increase our arrivals into Barbados during the summer. We are also undertaking several initiatives to ensure that the summer market becomes one that we will see growing success. We are creating partnerships with schools through the summer for football, netball, and cricket training camps here in Barbados, for quarries and other meeting and incentives group opportunities. We are establishing strategic partnerships with UK and Irish media. We are promoting the destination as an eco-friendly accommodation. Of course, we will leverage World Cup in June to encourage the British travelers to experience the series and, of course, the finals on the island. And we will continue to grow our golf tournaments on island. In the United States, Mr. Chairman, you would have noticed that JetBlue would have launched a Boston midweek service and resume year-round double daily services from John F. Kennedy. As I indicated earlier, American Airlines, in expanding their footprint into Barbados, would have extended, and we would have realized a 3 times daily service from Miami to Charlotte. And of course, Barbados will host a number of events teaming up with strategic partners from the United States market to ensure that we drive more summer business to the destination. In Canada, the significant capacity increases with Air Canada for summer of last year from Toronto which would have registered a 32% increase as compared with summer 2019, and winter 23-24 with a 44% increase compared with winter 22-23 from the Montreal Gateway. Service from Montreal increased to 4 weekly flights as compared to the previous year. And of course, in the post-pandemic return of WestJet for the summer of 2023. And of course, we are in negotiations to continue that service. Mr. Speaker, the Caribbean, which once had the benefit of LIAT, which would have led greater airlift to Barbados, did not have such an opportunity in the last year. Indeed, what we've been able to do is that we are working with our various partners, Inter-Caribbean, Suriname Airlines, Cayman Airways, Virgin Atlantic, and of course Caribbean Airlines, to ensure that we increase the number of seats into Barbados. In 2023, available seats into Barbados increased by 158,364, or 91% over 22, and had recovered to a total of 332,358, or 63% of the pre-COVID period. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, we are going to continue to maintain our partnerships with these airlines as we seek to redouble our efforts to drive additional business. You would appreciate, Mr. Chairman, that Barbados does not own an airline, but we are working with our partners within the region to ensure we drive additional airlift from the region. In Latin America, Mr. Chairman, Barbados recorded substantial growth in 2023 from key source markets, focusing on Brazil, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Argentina, Colombia, and of course, Panama. The increased Copa Airlines service to 3 times a week for the summer, and the introduction of the 4th weekly service, which commenced on January 1st of this year, all show the measure of progress being undertaken by this ministry. Mr. Chairman, quickly in wrapping up, I must speak to cruise tourism. Between January to December of this year, Barbados will expect to receive 826,337 cruise passengers from 338 calls, up from 661,635 passengers from 373 calls in 2023. The winter season, as we all know, looks and continues to be very positive, and we are grateful to all those who have helped us in this journey. I cannot thank the Permanent Secretary enough for her hard work and for having to cope with a minister who drives the team to succeed. The same is said as well for the Deputy Permanent Secretary and all other officers within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport who work extremely hard to ensure we realize the measured progress and the outstanding results we are currently enjoying. I must equally thank the chairman of the BTMI for ensuring that my ministry's policies are executed at that board as well. Special recognition must be extended to the acting CEO of the BTMI, the Director of PR and Communications, for having the extraordinary task of coping with me on and off island, but especially during our overseas trips, which are very demanding. The external directors within the BTMI and their teams must be congratulated for driving the business in their respective markets and executing my vision for the expansion and growth within the tourism sector. All BTMI employees have, in no small measure, helped to execute the ministry's mandate and contribute to the success we have recorded. Let me also thank all tourism workers for their dedication and commitment to the industry. Without their warmth, friendliness, and commitment to excellence, Brand Barbados could not have done so well. Let me thank all tourism stakeholders in general, including the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. To have accomplished what we have today might appear to have been an easy task, but the road to tourism recovery took an extraordinary amount of time and effort. Tourism is a very dynamic and highly demanding industry. Every day we have to compete with other destinations that have more resources than Barbados, that have more to spend on marketing than Barbados, and some have more hotel choices than Barbados. Mr. Chairman, there are a number of crucial things as a destination we need to take for Barbados' tourism to remain internationally competitive, relevant, and appealing. These enhancing and sustaining measures will, of course, include refreshing aging and aged areas of national plant and attractions, training and retraining of personnel at all levels in all tourism sectors, renewed public education aimed at keeping keen and engaging our most enduring and priceless asset, the natural and spontaneous warmth and goodwill of the average Barbadian. I therefore want to appeal to all stakeholders to make the necessary changes to their products and services in keeping with current and future tourism trends. With these initiatives and further investment in our people, product, and country, I remain confident that Barbados' tourism future remains very bright and rewarding. We will continue to work hard, and like I'd always said, I will give this job my very best shot. Mr. Chairman, I believe our tourism and international transport programs thus far have proven that point. Mr. Chairman, I'm grateful to you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 27 stand part.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of Committees. Good morning to parliamentary colleagues, and good morning to our guests. The Honourable Minister of Tourism ended his presentation by indicating to this chamber that he will give it his very best shot. And I believe him. I do believe the Honourable Minister. Knowing him, I believe him. On my way to this place, I was fortunate to hear a news report. And I think it was the chairman of the BHTA speaking. And she was speaking with some optimism as to the summer season that faces this country. And that was a reminder to all of us in Barbados that this country needs to join with all persons involved in this industry of tourism, that we need to join with them and to help this industry that has carried much of the prospects for Barbados for a number of years. And every patriotic Barbadian needs to say to himself and to say to his family and to say to this country and to say to this ministry and to say to the BHTA and to say to those who work in the industry, the maids, the waiters, the taxi drivers, the vendors who are supported by this industry, we need to say to them, as Barbadians outside of the industry, that we support the industry. And we need to support the industry because there's the other recognition that it is seasonal. And who knows, who can empathize with the person who works in an industry in which they must spend 4 months of labor, 5 months of labor, 6 sometimes, preparing for the relative hardship of a season of inactivity. Who among us can fail to empathize and to appreciate the condition of that worker? Who can fail to appreciate the condition of the hotelier, even, who has to maintain his plant during a season of inactivity? And this, Minister, you can be assured that this country joins with those who take charge of this industry for the good of country, for the good of the hoteliers, for the good of the workers, and for the good of all of those who are dependent on those workers in this noble industry. We join with you Minister, there shall be no hostility towards you, and there shall be no hostility towards this industry. This is a moment in patriotism when this country must join to ensure, as Ms. Coppins said this morning, that the summer looks bright. And I want to commend the Barbados Cricket Association and the Cricket West Indies for giving this country the opportunity for an active summer. That is a moment for congratulation, for bringing to the workers and the hoteliers of this country, hopefully a moment in prosperity, not for their own sakes, but for the sake of this country. I've listened to the minister as much as I have heard, and generally speaking, when you listen to workers in tourism or planners in tourism, you hear the word competitive. And that makes the work of planners in tourism really stressful, because I expect that you wake every day and you're keeping an eye on the competition. And you're keeping an eye on the competition because it is an industry that is volatile. It is an industry that stands at the mercy sometimes of your competitive environment. Not only the Caribbean, but Europe and parts of North America that attract tourists. And therefore, who among us will not offer support to those planners and those workers who work in this difficult and volatile industry? Mr. Chairman of Committees, I come today in support of this industry on behalf of the people of Barbados. Tourism as a concept really is defined by an attitude. The attitude of the hosts, that is us Barbadians, towards the tourists, the attitude of the tourists towards us as Barbadians. I know as much as that the industry has moved beyond sun, sand, and whatever was the slogan at the time. And the planners have, yes, thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch West. You're always so cordial and courteous. That the industry has moved beyond that, and the industry has recognized that it is the cultural exchange that is important, and that it is that attitude of the Barbadian towards the industry, and it is the attitude of the tourist towards the Barbadian that really defines this industry. That perhaps is the good news. I come to this office, Your Honor, with a mandate. I come with a mandate that involves the legitimate right to seek accountability. This exercise is not an exercise in games. I come to this office with a mandate and a duty to ask the government to be accountable to the people of Barbados. And Minister, through you, sir, I know this minister means well. I believe this minister when he says, and I quote, "I will give it my best shot." Minister, I believe you. And from my own position, I want, Your Honor, to remind you and to remind the government that I have a duty to this Parliament, to the people of this country, to seek accountability in government. That is my duty, and it is a duty from which I will not resile. And I ask the government, in the exercise of its own mandate, to accommodate us in our duty to seek accountability. And it now becomes a matter of some regret that after 2 days of this exercise, that I would have heard from a minister in this government, and I will quote him. I will not identify him today. By now, his identity is well exposed and established within this exercise. When he said, and I quote, in response to my questions, he takes personal and professional offense at the job that I have been doing, and that he considers the nature of my job and the nature of my questions to be interrogation that is nasty and vicious. Minister, I don't expect that attitude from you. I do believe you'll give it your best shot. But again, I say to you, Mr. Chairman, and this country, that I will not resile from my mandate, from my responsibility to ask questions, that I will not resile from my responsibility to represent the interests of the people of this country in respect of a government that spends money, that spends the people's money. That is my duty. And there's no nastiness, nor viciousness intended, nor exercised in my mandate, in my duty. So if I am met with that attitude, Your Honor, I will not resile from my responsibility. I have a legitimate right to question, and I will question, and I will do so within the rules of this House. Let the honorable member, absent as he is this morning, understand that I will continue above the noises, I will continue to scrutinize, I will continue to criticize, and where wrongdoing is revealed, I will chastise. That, Your Honor, is my duty. And against an attitude of resistance to my legitimate right to ask questions on behalf of the people of this country, that is my duty. And therefore, we come back to the present exercise. And Your Honor, to the Minister through you, I look forward to a debate, I look forward to an exercise which is sober, which is honest, which reveals the integrity of this government. I look forward to that. And I look forward to an abandonment of that attitude, that unfortunate attitude that I have met on Tuesday and Wednesday. I resent it, I resist it, I reject it. And Mr. Speaker, I will continue to abide by my duty. I will continue on behalf of the people of this country to urge this moment in patriotism when, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Minister, I express support for the work of all persons involved in this industry of tourism. Let us agree to that. Let us agree that this exercise becomes an exercise in accountability. Let us agree that this is not personal engagement, but that we come here as professionals. We come here as legislators. That is our duty as legislators, to represent the people of this country, not in representation of narrow interests, but in representation of the people of this country. And Minister, I repeat, I regard this as a moment in patriotism. Let us do the people's business, and let us do it in a climate of civility. Let us do it in a climate of courtesy, and let us do it according to the rules of this noble House. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, as much as I appreciate the contribution of the Leader of the Opposition recognizing how important it is for the Ministry of Tourism and the work it does. I was minded to get up on a point of order when I heard the Honourable Member reflect on the absence of another member. Because as far as I know, that is against the standing orders of this Honourable House, to reflect on the absence of another member. And, you know, sometimes, you know, the pot could call the kettle black. And if we were to look into these minutes of this Honourable House and look at the absence of the Honourable Member versus his presence, we may consider that, we may consider exactly who is the pot and who is the kettle. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I want to first ask directly to the Minister, and I commend you on the tremendous work that you're doing with Airlift. It is absolutely obvious with the numbers that you've been able to garnish, and it is being proactive, because with the number of hotel developments that we are now seeing, Sam Lord's having finished, Indigo well on stream, Pendry about to start, Royalton about to start, these must be supported by appropriate airlift, and I commend you on the numbers that you're able to achieve. I also heard very clearly that you were able to get back to pre-COVID levels from the UK market. But of course, that extrapolates that there are other markets that you may not be at pre-COVID levels. So therefore, my first question to you would be, if you are not at or surpassing pre-COVID levels at other markets, what strategies do you have in place to be able to get back to pre-COVID levels, if not better, for those other markets? That's my first question.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And let me also indicate to the Leader of the Opposition that I will continue to be very sober and honest, because it is perhaps the only way that we can deal with issues. Of course, should anybody humbug me, I may have to confuse them. But that is par for the course, as we know. But suffice to say that the country is recovering, and recovering in a very measurable way. We have seen, based on our January statistics, that the Latin American market, UK, and a Canadian market those markets continue to do very well. I will ask the Acting Chief Executive Officer of the BTMI to share with you the numbers that we are enjoying in January. The clear strategy for the Canadian market is to drive additional airlift into Barbados. We are well on the way. WestJet returns this summer, and there are a number of other new and exciting programs that we'll be launching in the marketplace. In addition to that, as I indicated, we are also discussing opportunities for additional airlift from other provinces within Canada to drive the numbers. The simple strategy that we adopted as soon as I took office, I reckon in October 2022, I recognize that if Barbados should continue to expand its reach within the tourism sector and become highly competitive, the immediate solution had to be airlift. And I'm very pleased that last June, when we went to the United States and we were discussing with all the airlines executives, that they too believe in what we had to offer. And the simple follow-up tactic is exactly what you described. With new room inventory coming, hotel room inventory coming on stream, we have to start the program early in order to get the marketing campaigns out, but more importantly, we have to drive the airlift to the destination. And you will see that next winter, as we are projecting, as we almost achieved it in this winter season, our almost full recovery, When you add a position where we are back to 2019 numbers in critical months, layer in on that next winter, at least 65, and there are going to be more, but at least 65,000 seats coming into Barbados. Barbados would have recorded, in my judgment, next winter season, the highest number of visitor arrivals to this destination. And that is what we're working on. So we will complement the airlift strategy with the accommodation strategy. And I should also thank you, Honourable Member, for all the work that you've been doing to ensure that we have the investments in new hotel plants in Barbados. It is absolutely necessary because we also, as I indicated in the latter part of my remarks, we have to become and remain competitive, but we also have to ensure that we change with the changing times and ensure that we have new trends. So that's part of the strategy, airlift to destination for those markets. The Latin American market has done phenomenally well. If you look at the stats, we've surpassed what we did last year, and that is no small accomplishment. I addressed the Canadian market and the all-important Caribbean market. We're getting back there. The challenge has always been with airlift. That is why you would recognize that the strategy we undertook to allow Virgin Atlantic, to have tag flights into St. Vincent and Grenada was also designed, not as some people would say, to allow others to get business, but for us to drive additional regional traffic to the destination. I believe I would have answered the question, but perhaps I will ask the Acting Chief Executive Officer to just give a summary of January 2024 numbers at this point. Acting CEO.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable members. Craig Hines, Acting CEO of Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc. Following on from the Minister's point, in January, we would have seen that our overall arrivals, just for clarity, these are preliminary in-house figures. Overall arrivals for January, we would have seen 69,894 compared to pre-COVID of 70,197. That reflects a difference of 303 visitors to the island. Across the source markets, that represents 81% of pre-COVID for United States, 117% for Canada, 119% for United Kingdom, 67% for Europe, 83% for the Caribbean, 137% for the Caribbean, for Central and Latin America, and 100% for what we refer to as other, which is not a market for which we have offices established. I just wanted to add one further point to the Minister's response, in that we have also, through our marketing, employ efforts to see us, based on research, do more targeted marketing, and that would help us to reach the demographics for which we've seen persons express an interest in Barbados. We've done that consistently across our markets, and that has supplemented our strategy, which the Minister would have outlined, of firstly increasing airlift, and then how we go about in making sure that the load factors and those seats on those airlines are full. So generating that interest in Barbados as a destination, getting those campaigns targeted and into the necessary source markets on a timely basis has worked well for us thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting CEO. So, Senior Minister, you can tell we're almost recovered, frankly, in the month of January. And again, these are obviously our in-house preliminary figures, but what they do tell us is that we are well on the way to sustain performance in tourism arrivals. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. My second question has to do with my second and third will have to do with logistics surrounding the industry. Now, clearly, when passengers arrive at the airport or even the seaport, they would anticipate having access to a taxi operator who will be able to take them around, show them, get them to the various locations to make purchases. And of course, the most important thing is the spend that the visitors would have on island. But very important is our taxi operators. What programs, policies, concessions have you put in place to assist our taxi operators at the seaport and also, if necessary, at the airport? You would recall that when we came to office, the taxi operators, particularly at the airport, were having a discrepancy with their rates in compared to what it was at the seaport. And this administration, through the Deputy Prime Minister and discussions that would have been started before, we were able to regularize that and to bring some parity between the two. So my question is, what concessions, what programs, if any, have you put in place to be able to assist the taxi operators at the various ports?
Thank you, Senior Minister. What I can tell you, less than about 4 weeks ago, I would have met with the respective presidents and chairpersons of the Bridgetown taxi co-op operators at the port. And what we indicated to them is that in their quest to increase business, we would join with the BTMI and the Barbados Port Inc. to facilitate an arrangement where they will now have a marketing officer or marketing manager. That initiative was warmly received by both presidents who I met with, and they're very keen. We have tasked the Bridgetown Port with the recruitment drive, obviously subject to input from the Bridgetown Port Taxi Associations. With that initiative, that will therefore allow taxi operators operating the Bridgetown Port to get a greater share of the cruise transport market by allowing a person to work with them to build out the required marketing programs. Once we complete that exercise and we continue to encourage taxi operators to look at different methods of payment, because we find a lot of people, based on our research, travelers, necessarily traveling with a lot of cash, and they like to pay by credit card. So we're working with them. Once we've completed the recruitment exercise with their input, we will be in a stronger position for them to drive additional business or capture additional business from the cruise ships. The program will be a sustained marketing one. They will have an opportunity to have representatives inside the port to facilitate and direct traffic to them, along with all the necessary supporting mechanisms that we are going to put in place for them. We believe that this is the correct move in our attempt to help the Bridgetown taxi operators to drive and to secure a greater share of the market. And we are going to proceed with great haste to realize that opportunity. The other benefit would be when we are attending cruise shows within and cruise conventions within the United States, UK, and Europe, will be to allow, as we have done in the past, operators, but more importantly, a marketing person, to join us on those overseas trips to help advance and market the cause. Similar to what the hoteliers do when they go to trade shows, they market the destination. So we are going to pursue that strategy in earnest. I will also tell you that this new initiative will certainly redound to their financial success as we drive that business. The airport, the Chief Executive Officer of the Grant Williams International Airport is here with us. He has done a lot of work, along with his team, a lot of work at the airport to facilitate not only the business at the airport. The issue of the rates have been settled, long settled. We have not seen any evidence of criticism of those rates at the airport. It's all settled down very nicely. There were, of course, explanation sessions, and that's working well. But we have some additional challenges that we have to overcome, because as we drive additional traffic to the destination, air traffic to the destination, we have to be mindful that the taxis will have to turn around in very short time in order to accommodate the volumes. And we are going to stay true to our mission to ensure that the taxi drivers in Barbados continue to get a greater share of the transport, the land transport operations. I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer of the Grant Williams International Airport to make a comment in this respect as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Honourable House. Good morning, colleagues. Hadley Bourne, Chief Executive Officer of the Grant Williams International Airport. And thanks, Minister, for your offer. As the Minister would have alluded to, and also the acting CEO of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., we've seen significant recovery within the industry. And one of the things that we're really working hard on at the airport and we are managing well is the overall customer experience. Year to date, Mr. Hines would have spoken as it relates to the visitors, but it would also include that our overall performance based on pre-COVID levels, we would have recovered in extents of 93% of our overall passenger numbers, and invariably in total aircraft movements, roughly 97 to 98%. Our main focus within the challenging times is really to focus on our customer experience, because I know there's a lot of impetus as it relates to our return and repeat passengers, and that is one that we want to focus highly on in terms of your experience through the airport. Yes, we've had our challenges in various areas, but as we mitigate these challenges, we try to improve on the overall experience as passengers. I know various members of this Honourable House would have called me at times on various challenges, but we continue to work to mitigate them, and we've seen significant improvement. And one particular area is in our baggage handling delivery, where persons would have seen extensive waits for their baggage for numerous regions. I won't list them all, but we've come together collectively as an airport community to mitigate a lot of these challenges, and we'll continue to improve on what we have. And I think a significant focus would be geared towards the World Cup to ensure that our guests and our visitors also have that similar experience.
Thank you very much. And to your earlier question, Senior Minister, I think it's important. I sometimes speak in aviation language, though I'm not an expert. But when it indicated tag flights, I might want to just elaborate on that. So effectively, you have non-stop services, flights that would leave, let's say, the United Kingdom, come to Barbados, terminate in Barbados, and return to the United Kingdom. A tag flight is when that flight originates out of the United Kingdom, it arrives in Barbados, and then it goes on to another destination. Let's use this example of St. Vincent or Grenada, 2 examples. It returns to Barbados, they pick up additional passengers, and they return to United Kingdom. So I thought, for the benefit of the House and the public, that I should explain when I say a tag flight, what that means. The other interesting point in respect of the airport taxi operators, with the increased airlift that we're expecting, we're getting now with the additional 2 Virgin flights through to March, and the expanded airlift we will obviously get in next winter, there will be significant opportunities there as well for those operators. And it's not that there are persons who are coming only on cruise and then they're transported directly to the airport. The initiatives that we've launched with the new airlift will see more than 90% of that traffic coming through the Grant Lee Adams International Airport to use local transport taxis or hire cars. The other point that I would like to speak to as it relates to cruise is that the taxi operators at the Bridgetown Port this summer will have a wonderful opportunity. We've been able to reverse and turn the tide in respect of the number of cruise ships and passengers who are coming here for summer. So this summer, we are going to realize, and this is on the books at the moment, 49,662 passengers, and we're going to have 12 vessels this season. I wouldn't bore you by listing out all the vessels and the current occupancies as relayed to us by the cruise executives, but I can assure you that we're doing so. In fact, I left Barbados on Monday. We went to meetings with presidents of cruise lines and other executives. We had those meetings on Tuesday. The demand for Barbados continues to be great, and the cruise presidents that we met with, including Royal Caribbean, Silver Seas, and Celebrity, and those are officers, two of them in particular, who flew to Miami to meet with our delegation from Barbados, indicated that our standing in terms of customer service for a port, because you well know, Honourable Member, they benchmark crew satisfaction, and that helps to position the ships. And notwithstanding that our geographic location has been very southern, and sometimes it could throw off the cruise itinerary, they have kept faith with Barbados because Barbados continues to be a marquee destination for travelers. And this is reinforced and supported by the customer satisfaction scores from those cruise lines. So whereas we had a gradual return, and last summer we didn't do as well, because obviously when we fully relaxed our protocols, it was a bit too late for the deployment. I can confirm that the deployment for this summer will be one that will garner almost 50,000 cruise ship passengers from approximately 24 vessels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that addition. Please forgive me if I keep around logistics, and obviously keeping with your proactive vein, which I commend. It has to do with, again, the infrastructure and preparing the island in advance of the impending construction, number of construction projects that we anticipate. Now, clearly, if you're going to be building an 80 or 100-room hotel, you're going to need a lot of inputs from overseas. I'm told that there's one hotel that's about to start that is going to have 550-odd containers. If that is the case, and you may have 2 or maybe 3 projects going simultaneously, what programs or what proactive actions have been taken by the port in order to prepare itself for this impending large number of containers coming through in a short space of time? Because obviously, to increase your number of containers you're having to deal with by 500 or 1,000 over a 10 or 12-month period, because these hotels are going up very quickly. Obviously, we have to put measures in place. Have you looked at that? And if so, can you share with this Honourable Chamber what measures you have in fact put in place at the Bridgetown Port?
Thank you again, Senior Minister. Of course, the Bridgetown Port has an exceptional history of moving containers. I can also tell you that the port has made substantial investments in equipment, straddle carriers, RTGs, and the like. The investment that we've made in the Bridgetown Port, including the construction of berth 6, is designed, and that berth 6 will be completed in August. That will allow us to have an additional cargo area to facilitate the movement of the receiving of containers and the efficient handling of containers out of the Bridgetown Port. I will ask the Chief Executive Officer of the port, Mr. David John Reed, to speak to this. But what I can tell you and certainly on all the tours I've undertaken, the challenge is always trying to get the cargo ships there when we have the cruise ships. And believe you me, we have a lot of cruise ships, and the size of the cruise ship obviously could cause a challenge for cargo ships coming into port. So berth 6, it was, in my judgment, a great investment opportunity. I'm happy that the project will soon be completed. It started before my tenure as minister, but the reality is that we had the vision to look down the road to see how best we can manage cruise ships and cargo ships. Because if you don't handle the cargo ships, as you well know, one could incur additional charges when they're out of port, or it could create a situation where the ship bypasses Barbados and goes to another port within the region, and then we have to transship that cargo. But I'll ask the CEO, Mr. David Jomri, to also respond to your question. Jomri?
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Chairman and members of the House of Assembly, colleagues, with respect to the port and its capacity, currently the Bridgetown port has a static maximum capacity.
You may want to indicate your name for the record.
Oh, David Jomri, Chief Executive Officer of Barbados Port Inc., BPI. Currently, the port has, based on current facilities, has a capacity of 205,000 20-foot containers. We are now operating at about 60%. We handled 120,000 in the 2022-23 financial year, and projected for this year, it should be 117,000. So we still have quite a bit of capacity to handle the incoming business expected. But in addition to that, as Minister indicated, we are in the process of building out berth number 6. It should be completed by August 2024, providing an additional 9 acres of yard space, and therefore giving us even more capacity in that regard. We are also expecting to introduce a rubber tire gantry system where we will stack containers at a higher number rather than 4 high. We'll expect to go 6 or 7 high to give even more capacity. The subcommittee of the Social Partnership on Port Efficiency is meeting on a weekly basis, the Port Operations Committee, as we try to iron out all the inefficiencies so that we can have containers moving quickly. We've set a target of 35 minutes for truck turnaround time, and once we have all systems going well with all the other regulatory agencies, we should be able to get the containers moving quickly out of the port. So there's no capacity issue or concern at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jomri. And that includes if you get into the transshipment business as well, you would still have enough capacity, transshipment, including the amount of containers anticipated?
It does, Minister, it does. We are constantly looking for more business, transshipment business. We believe we have the capacity to accommodate. The berth 6 will also have, as part of the equipment suite, 2 additional gantry cranes. As Minister indicated, we've replaced the straddle carriers, the units that carry the containers around the yard. We've replaced the entire fleet at a cost of $30 million in the last financial year, this financial year. So we have a new fleet, therefore the reliability issues of unreliabilities have gone away.
Yes, and thank you for that. Of course, in respect of transshipment, there is a significant opportunity for Barbados. We are currently exploring that opportunity. A delegation from the Bridgetown Port will be going into the Caribbean to have further discussions as we position Barbados as a transshipment point. It is also strategic in our approach because Barbados has to be seen as a hub, and that's what we're going to be building out, a hub in Barbados. And perhaps the Chief Executive Officer may want to expand on the central examination and cargo handling facility and other plans that they have at the Bridgetown Port, not only to enhance efficiency, but also to build out the logistics for Barbados as a hub And the hub is not only related to the Caribbean, because of our geographic location and proximity to the other side of the Atlantic, there are also opportunities for us in terms of moving cargo on the African continent, as well as when you look at the geographic location of the Panama Canal and the issues that they're having there. And we are strategically focusing on some opportunities. But I'll ask David Jean-Marie, CEO of the port, to give you greater details and insight into those plans. David?
Thank you, Minister. We were challenged by the Prime Minister to develop a long-term vision of the port, vision for the port, stream on the strategic needs of Barbados. First, this directive work began in June last year. We looked at 7 possible infrastructural concepts, and these were presented to the board, outlining the potential areas for expansion of cargo facilities for transshipment, storage and distribution of LNG, expansion of cruise facilities, and the like. The concepts were amended to fit within government's connectivity project, contemplated the development of functional hubs with elements as follows. Firstly, a transshipment hub, where we reclaim significant quantity of land and attract a foreign operator to bring significant business given the strategic location of Barbados. The second area we looked at was to be a cruise hub with port of call and home port facilities. We would have engaged advisors to look at the market to tell us what is happening there, what the expectation should be, and how many port of call berths we should build out versus home port berths. So we have a blueprint looking to see how we can work with a developer or an operator to build out cruise facilities at the Bridgetown port. The third area was bunkering and energy, with an offshore energy hub at Checker Hall, St. Lucie, the site of the existing Arawak jetty. And then the fourth area is maritime services hub, where we would provide dry docking facilities to service cruise, tankers, and container vessels, as well as a distribution center, including a maritime training institute and car parking facilities and so on. We're looking at the idea of last mile logistics, where we have provided logistics facilities here, and we can finish products and have them distributed from Barbados. So there's quite a bit of work ongoing and it's a 50-year plan. It's quite expensive, of course, but we've begun to work on this in this regard.
Thank you, David. What I would also like to do in response to your early question, Senior Minister, perhaps we need the airport CEO to give you greater details in respect of the enhancement to facilities for the taxi operators at the Grant Lems International Airport. And his team would have done significant work up there, but perhaps he would shortchange himself and his company if he didn't go into greater detail. And I would therefore ask for him to give greater details. CEO of the Grant Lems International Airport, Mr. Hadley-Bourne.
Thanks, Minister. I am not one to normally laud in myself and tapping on the shoulders, but you're absolutely correct. And I think coming out of one of the meetings we would have had as it related to our town hall meetings and sensitization of the public and where we were going, the taxi operators would have raised significant concerns in terms of their infrastructure. And with the team, we would have gone ahead to look to enhance what they would have had. First and foremost, we would have done an extensive cleanup of the facility in terms of dated equipment, etc. And as part of our plan, it would have rolled out late in by the end of 2023, December, due to some logistical challenges. But we started to go through a refurbishment campaign. One of the things that has happened so far for sure was the implementation of additional seating. I've also been working with the engineering team as it relates to the audio system within the taxi area to ensure that the calls from the line are well heard. And also we're looking to implement a flight information display, what we call as a FIDS, to assist them in being able to ascertain when flights are on the ground, etc. We are also planning in the near future to work on the traffic management plan surrounding both the taxi area and also the staff car park to facilitate the traffic movement, especially during peak hours. So that is something that I've actually asked the Director of Engineering to expedite as we look to especially improve the traffic flow and the ease of movement within and around the environs of the taxi stand and the airport facility in general.
Thank you very much, CEO.
Now that the CEO of the airport has chimed in, I guess I would have to ask a follow-up question. And clearly, again, with logistics, you've done well with the taxi operators, but what have you done to improve the baggage handling? You know, very often we get complaints of people coming in from flights. I have been the victim of it myself, coming in on an Air Canada flight. Had to wait quite a long time, especially Air Canada, more so than any other airline. What improvements have you done to be able to improve and expedite baggage handling at the facility?
Thank you for that question. I'll respond as well, but I'll also ask Mr. Lemuel Padmore, representing the Caribbean Aircraft Handling, which is owned by the government of Barbados, as well as Mr. Hadley Bourne to speak to this. But the simple, and you're right, Senior Minister, there are times when we will experience delays. Last Monday, I was leaving Barbados, and I got a call that there was a delay. And I was a bit shocked because I know what we have done to improve the processing of bags. And situations will happen. For example, last Monday, there was a burst pipe. And as a result of that, to avoid risks to the lives of the workers, we had to close off 2 baggage areas until we were able to pump the water. But what I can tell you, I undertook to initiate meetings with all what we refer to as the ground handlers at the Grant Williams International Airport, Caribbean Aircraft Handling, and GCG Ground, Goddard Catering Group ground handlers. We had meetings with those ground handlers, and we met with those ground handlers in an attempt to resolve this issue. We, in a very short period of time, were able to improve the processing times from the time the aircraft arrives in Barbados, when the beacon light is switched off. And we reviewed that process, re-engineered it, all the way through to the first bag reaching the customs area before it goes out into the carousel. We fine-tuned that process, and what we were able to do, meeting with the ground handlers almost every week, we were able to fine-tune. So you have a situation where bags are no longer taken as long as they took from the time the cargo door is open until they reach the interior of the arrivals hall. The Ministry of Health collaborated with us as well, and therefore all the information required by the Ministry of Health is now transmitted electronically, thereby reducing one step. And there were other steps that were reviewed in order to ensure that the bags get to the luggage area in accordance not only with the airline's operating requirements for a first bag to be delivered, but also in respect of what we set out. The other issue is that we told the ground handlers that if they were not prepared to improve the process, then we obviously would have had to seek a new arrangement for penalties at the Grant Williams International Airport. The ground handlers agreed that we should have consensual fines, and therefore the consensual fines are in place. Of course, we are fine-tuning other areas because there are some instances, for example, if you have, and I believe you're a pilot as well, sir, that if you have some very strong headwinds, the aircraft perhaps can get here an hour earlier. And considering that we oftentimes have all the aircraft arriving in Barbados sometimes between 12:30 and 6, it could prove to be problematic. And in those cases, we don't want to obviously fine them to the extent that it could have problems for the businesses. But we've put that regime in place. We are grateful that we have had the cooperation not only of the ground handlers, but also the officers of the airport. And obviously, a gentleman who was appointed to help lead that process on our behalf, who sits as board chair for one of our SOEs. So we've done a lot of work, and I must tell you, on a daily basis, there's a report which comes through to the ministry, and we also have a consolidated report. And that report basically sets out how often the targets were not met, and if the targets were not met, why they were not met. But I can tell you, when we look at the statistics, that we've turned around. In fact, I would say we reversed that situation to the benefit of the customers. The other initiatives that were also taken by the Customs Department that I can't speak to because those involve national security, to facilitate the inspection of bags and so on. So we have work. It's taken us not an inordinate amount of time, but some time to facilitate and to get to the point where we are. And crucially, the airlines are responsible through their ground handlers for turnaround an aircraft when it lands, sometimes within an hour. And it has to be clean. You have to unpack the bags. You have to then pack the bags on the aircraft. And that takes time. But what I can tell you, when I've seen it in operation myself, I mean, it is really a wonderful logistics operation. And I'm very pleased with the progress we've made. But I'll ask Mr. Lemuel Padmore to speak to it first. And I'll also ask the Chief Executive Officer of the Grand Embassy International Airport to speak to the issue as well. Mr. Padmore.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of Parliament, colleagues. The matter of logistics and removal of bags from aircraft is it's a
Officer,
task.
before you proceed for the record, could you please give your name and your position? Please?
Certainly. Lemuel Padmore, Chief Executive Officer, Caribbean Aircraft Handling. Thank you, sir. The matter of removal of bags, it's one that has, how shall I put it? The attention has been brought to this matter because of service issues that were raised before, and we have worked with our airline partners to ensure that we can move bags far more expeditiously to the breakdown area in conjunction with the airport authority. We must note that some of the issues relate to the airlines hubs in the US and the UK, how they load their bags, and of course there are certain weight and balance issues that have to be taken into consideration even for the offloading of bags, because if bags are offloaded incorrectly, bags are not loaded correctly, we can have a tipping problem with an aircraft. So these matters have been looked at. Our teams have been working assiduously with the airport authorities to ensure that we can get those bags off. I must note that on an afternoon between 1 and 5, we are moving about over 3,000 bags in that period. If you work that out over a month, we move over 100,000 bags off of aircraft in that window and on afternoons. And also, the outbound is also relative as well, because we have to move another 100,000 bags a month on the outbound. What we are doing, we are ensuring that we can meet the requirements of the airport, ensuring that we can get these bags. Remember, I said 3,000 bags in that window, and we are talking about 3,000 bags between 15 to 40 minutes. The first bag has to be at the carousel in the breakdown area within 15 minutes, and the last bag within 40 minutes. And we have therefore to thank, I must thank our teams at the airport, both for Caribbean Aircraft Handling. I believe I can speak for GCG, those men who lift those bags, because it must be noted that some aircraft are containerized. which helps the process. But nevertheless, when these bags get to the carousel, every single bag has to be manually lifted out of a container, off of a cart, onto the carousel to get through the customs procedure and then get to the passenger in the arrivals hall. So it is noteworthy of the improvements that have been made as we've strategized, ensuring that we have the requisite manpower in place, working to ensure our preventative maintenance is up to par, and we can have the requisite tractors, conveyor belts, high loaders in position, functioning to aid in the process to ensure that these bags can be in the arrivals hall in a timely manner, therefore exceeding the expectations. And that's our desire, that we exceed the expectations of the arriving passengers and also the outbound passengers, because if we're loading late for the outbound process, flights will leave late. So I want to thank the teams for doing this. But this is what we're doing, preventative maintenance, equipment management, staffing management to ensure we have the requisite manpower numbers to deal with the process. Thank you, sir.
And before you leave, Mr. Padmore, I think you should also afford the country the opportunity to know, very briefly, the targets and walk them through the exercise from the time the beacon light is switched on until the bags are delivered to the airport, and the time frames, the new time frames, based on the protocol we have in place for those bags to remove from the aircraft.
So once the aircraft has landed, the wheels are stopped, the marshal has indicated to the captain that the wheels are chopped. We then have to ensure that those bags are in the arrivals hall within, the first set of bags must be in the arrivals hall within 15 minutes. 15 minutes, of course, there is time for the agents to go to the crew to ensure that all is well with in the cabin, and we have permission to open the doors. Once that has happened, we then move to ensure, and must bear in mind that we have to position steps, we have to position equipment so that these bags can be removed. And we're working with the 15-minute parameter to have the first bags there. As I said, 40 minutes for the last bag, but in between there, we are constantly moving bags, ensuring that the process is working. And if we fail to, the new regulations are, if we fail to meet these requirements, I believe the first penalty is about first 1 to 5 minutes. It's about $750, and then it goes up to $1,000, and it go up to $3,000 if it's over 15 minutes. So therefore, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that we get the bags into the arrivals hall as quickly as possible. Bearing in mind the amount of bags we're dealing with, though, and the manual component that is involved in the process. And we are achieving that with the strategies that we have put in place. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Padmore. I will also call now on the Chief Executive Officer of the Grand Amsterdam International Airport, who perhaps will be able to share some of the data in respect of the performance, the improved performance in respect of baggage handling. Because I must tell you, Mr. Chairman, that is perhaps one of the best kept secrets, because the bags are being taken to the arrivals hall in the shortest possible time. Perhaps Mr. CEO Hadley Bourne, you can share some of the statistics for the benefit of members of the House and the country.
Thanks, Minister. And I also want to add, we forgot another one of our stakeholders, Intercaribbean, who does a lot of self-handling, and they are a significant player also in the process. And prior to the implementation of the KPIs and the associated penalties, and I still go back to December, on average, bags were taking between 20 and 30 minutes, the first bag to get to the breakdown area or forward-facing passenger, and the last bag in excess of 50 minutes to an hour. What we've seen since we've implemented the changes, on average, first bag 12 minutes, and last by approximately 38 minutes. And this is significant. I myself traveled over the weekend for the first time since the implementation, and I timed it. Yes, it was on a much smaller flight, but between landing and customs, it was 10 minutes. Also, in recent weeks, I would also have visits from Minister responsible for Home Affairs, and he has also seen the improvements in the system. There are some national security considerations that may at times cause us not to meet the KPIs, but all in all, that is improved. Well, what we've not highlighted in this discussion is also the efficiency of our immigration department in terms of the time as regards the time to process through our immigration process. Yes, we have 20 kiosks and an excess of 50 electronic kiosks. Industry standard is roughly 15 minutes through the immigration process, but on light days we can do it in 6, and on peak days we would improve that to roughly 12 minutes. And we're also looking at also seamless border control, whereby electronically persons would even traverse the infrastructure even quicker. And I say that to say, with our small capacity and considering that we do majority in excess of 90% of our movements in a 4-hour block, we don't have that real estate to deal with the volume. So in terms of customer experience, efficiency and quick throughput of persons is critical. And these improvements will definitely enhance our overall posture and in terms of aid our customer experience for the traveling public.
Thank you. So, Honourable Senior Minister, what we've done is that we've had a challenge. We went in there, isolated it, and rectified the challenge. And as a result, we have now a much improved process to facilitate bags. The only one point I'd like to make here, and it has to do with premium bags, persons who are checked in business class or first class. Oftentimes, when the planes arrive in Barbados, those premium bags are not packed where they're supposed to be packed. Sometimes they're all the way into the belly of the aircraft. And oftentimes, you will realize because the requirement has to be met, even though there's a requirement from the airlines to offload those bags first, if they're not packed in a position where those bags could be taken off the aircraft and sent to the arrivals hall, that oftentimes causes a delay. That delay is not a Barbados delay. That delay has to do with the fact that the aircraft from its destination of origin was not packed in terms of the premium bags in a location that would first allow those bags to leave the aircraft. So I oftentimes know people when they come on a business, predominantly out of the United States, not necessarily on the UK-based flights, because they have the roll-on and loaders roll on and roll off. And the bags are first and premium are segregated. But I just thought I will share that with you because oftentimes there are persons who would complain, and when they complain, they will give the impression that it's the fault of the Grant Williams International Airport or it is the fault of the Customs Department. It is certainly not the fault. It has to do with how the aircraft is loaded at the point of origin. Having said that, the ground handlers are working with the airlines in the markets of origin to ensure that this problem is rectified. It hasn't been fixed, it's still a work in progress, and the officers here, along with the leadership from the Grant Williams International Airport, will continue to ensure that we accomplish that. So I just thought I would put that into the record of Parliament because oftentimes it is a criticism that we get. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let me end at this point and commend you and your team for managing the ministry and all the various departments extremely well. This is a very, very important ministry, contributing a significant portion of the gross domestic product of this country. And therefore, it must be in safe hands. And I am fully confident that it's in safe hands with you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Let me apologize to you, Minister. At the opening, we should have allowed you to introduce your team, and so I do apologize, and I will allow you to do so now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And perhaps I share in that responsibility as well. I should have done so. Just to let you know, to my right, we have the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Mrs. Francine Blackman. To my left, we have the Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Mrs. Nicole Taylor. And seated behind me, I'll go through the list so I don't have to do it that way. We have Tracy Ford Bailey, representing Civil Aviation Authority as Director General. Eleanor Carroll, the manager of Caves Barbados Limited. Of course, David John Marie, CEO of the port. Deborah Hughes, Needham Point's Chief Executive Officer, Needham's Point Holding Chief Executive Officer. We have Hadley Bourne of Grand Ems International Airport CEO. We have Mr. Lemuel Padmore, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Caribbean Aircraft Handling. We have Mr. Mark Durant from the Ministry of Tourism, who's the acting head of research. We have Andrea Mears, who's the financial controller within the ministry. We have Mrs. Donna Archer, Chief AIS Officer, Air Navigation Services. Mr. Glenn Blanchett, who's the Chief Air Traffic Controller at ANS. Mr. Carol Gaynor, who's the Director of the Air Navigation Services. We have Lana Jones, who's the Financial Controller of Hotel and Resorts Limited. Mr. Peter Harris, who's the Chairman of Hotel and Resorts Limited. Ms. Lana Hayward, who's the Manager of Product Quality, Barbados Tourism Product Authority. Mr. Anderson King, Director of Marketing, BTMI. Craig Hines, CEO of BTMI. Jacqueline Belgrave, Chief Technical Officer within the ministry. We have Ms. Gail Yearwood, who's the Project Coordinator within the ministry. Ms. Michelle Moore, Director of Finance at BTMI. Mrs. Nicole Aline, Project Coordinator within the ministry as well. Najla King, who's the Director of Maritime Affairs. We have Ms. Marsha Aline, who's the Chief Product Development Officer. We also have the Chairman of the BTMI, Mrs. Shelley Williams, who's here with us. I do not believe I've missed anybody. Did I miss anybody, just to be clear? Sorry. And we have Ms. Diane Sherlin, who heads the BSEC company as Chief Executive Officer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a pleasant good morning to the Minister and to all of the public officers who are with us this morning in the well to discuss what is perhaps one of the most important sectors for the Barbadian economy. I must say, Minister, that I expected from the Leader of the Opposition perhaps some vicious attacks on not only the sector, but also those working in the sector, given that the last 48 hours has seen us certainly attacks on the most vulnerable in this country, the homeless. And perhaps he may have taken direction from the party leader.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I expect that the Minister intends to ask a question of some quality. I will repeat. Please listen to me. The second word is expect. I expect that the Minister intends to ask some question of some quality. If she is purporting...
What is the point of order?
I'm coming to it, Your Honor. I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. Above the noises, I'm coming to it. I spoke of an attitude in here this morning. I do not know where this member heard any attack on the disabled, let her point to the speech. I don't know where she heard it. But if she is parroting the nonsense that she has heard in a very isolated place in the public domain, if she's associating herself with foolishness, she is misleading this chamber in indicating that she heard an attack on the disabled in here some time ago. Not true.
No point of order, honorable
She's
member.
misleading the chamber. That's my point of order.
No point of order, honorable member.
Perhaps the honourable member is referencing videos in the press regarding his constituents who are disabled, who are concerned about his deflecting from the Barbados Labour Party, but that is another matter. This is not the place for that. I indicated that I am happy that the Leader of the Opposition is supportive of the work that the Honourable Minister and his team is doing, of the fact that on this Day of the Lord, that we are able to proudly boast of record numbers in tourism, persons arriving into this country. I am particularly pleased as well because, I'm beginning to feel a little aged because I do recall sitting on the other side when the then Minister of Tourism spoke about numbers and how important numbers were, and that we had to make sure that we had arrivals increased in terms of capacity coming to the island. I also recall a time on the other side, sir, when we were very concerned about the loss of the New York flight on American Airlines. And I'm pleased that this morning the minister can report that the flights from JFK on American Airlines have come back to Barbados under this administration. It is not to be taken lightly, sir. It is not to be taken lightly, I think, by the Honourable Minister. I know a lot of work has gone in, even by successive ministers, in getting us to this point. And of course, the work of the Honourable Prime Minister across the world and her mandate in terms of climate change, I am sure has helped to raise the profile of Barbados as we seek to attract people to this destination. What, however, though, sir, I recall as well is that the then administration and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would do well to go back to these videos and certainly to the files to see the position of his party now. Because at that time, we focused a lot on not just arrivals and the importance of arrivals, but we as an opposition asked the questions about visitor spend. Because you cannot, on the one hand, say all of these people are coming, but equally that it is not trickling down to the people, whether it is the hoteliers, the small hotels, whether it is to the vendors on the street, the people in St. Lawrence Gap that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would be familiar with if he had been paying attention to them. These are the people, sir, that the visitor spend must trickle down to, and these arrivals must trickle down to. And while I think it is wonderful that we can applaud the efforts of where we are now in terms of arrivals, I would like the Honourable Minister and his team to speak to the visitor spend. And I start there, sir, because I think it is important that we understand the direct impact and indirect impact that these numbers are having on the country. Okay, we will not, as a party, I think, be placed in a position where we only speak to numbers, but we must speak to the impact in the whole town area, the Spikestown area, how businesses are doing in Bridgetown. How do the people in the Pine benefit? How do people in Britons Hill benefit from these numbers that we are seeing? I am pleased that the head of the BHTA spoke out this morning and perhaps may have silenced some of the opposition, but she spoke to the fact that there are projections for increased arrivals for cricket. And the summer projections are also looking very good as well. And I therefore would like that the first question that is addressed is on our spend, but also as a part two to that, to look at how the ministry is addressing the issue of attractions, because we're seeing more and more young people under the age of 35 certainly coming to the island. We had a situation in the last administration where there was no spend on the attractions. They were focused on numbers. They were not interested in the improvement of the hotel plant, which we have obviously focused on under the BERT program. They were not focused, obviously, on the attractions and the offerings that were made available to the tourists who were coming to the shores. And I would like to hear from you, Minister, and your team, what are we doing in terms of those persons, those cadre of persons who stand to be directly impacted from the numbers, the increasing number of arrivals that we're seeing of late?
Is on? Oh, thank you. Honourable Member, the issue for us has to do with, and you're quite right, we have to obviously ensure that every visitor to this country contributes to the Barbados economy. I must admit that oftentimes we're a little too timid in our approach and how we extrapolate spend from customers. I have, in several ways, set out a number of initiatives, how best we can increase visitor spend on island. In order to do so, as a destination, we have to be very creative. We have to ensure, for example, that if we are a nation with a long association of sugar and molasses and rum, that we should leverage that as part of our heritage tourism and expand our footprint in order to create even more attractions relating to heritage tourism. The Harrison's Cave has done very well. It continues to do very well in a post-COVID recovery, but they have also reinvested in the plant and created additional attractions within the historic cave that we have in St. Thomas. That is going well, and we can see all the measurable progress there. The other issue for us is that we may have to look at how we accept payments at point-of-sale terminals. There's a view long held in Barbados that customers will walk with a lot of cash. The new customer, particularly the more youthful customer, is no longer walking with large amounts of cash, they're walking with plastic. And therefore, we're gonna have to augment how we deal with that in respect of electronic commerce. And that is something that we are working on. I alluded to it earlier in terms of how taxi operators operate, and obviously some have already put systems of point-of-sale systems in place. But I believe the advent or the addition of more point-of-sale systems on the island to capture additional spend will be necessary. We also, the visitor spend, obviously we rely on the Central Bank of Barbados to provide the information. And based on the numbers that I'm seeing around Barbados, it must be at the end of January, I'm sure we will see a very positive outcome in respect of spend. Recently, I had to go to a restaurant for dinner, and to get into the restaurant was a challenge. But it also tells me that if we are building out additional airlift and capacity into the destination and the restaurants, and you can't get a restaurant booking. In fact, fortuitously, we were meeting with the team from the International Monetary Fund 2 days ago, and they told us that they were here and they were trying to get a restaurant booking, and it was proving very difficult. I'm happy that they were able to tell us that, because obviously it tells the story of tourism. But we need to have more investment in restaurants, more investment in attractions. And the reason why we have to do this is because the repeat customer who comes to Barbados on a cruise ship or a long-stay visitor would not want to come and, visit the same sites that they would have done last year. And there are greater opportunities for us now to create within communities more attractions. And this is something that we're gonna have to work on. We started some work on it, but in terms of expediting the work, it is something that I intend to pay greater attention to. Like I said, my immediate focus when I became minister was to address what I believe and I felt was the airline seat deficit issue. So we went to work on that and we dealt with that. The second line of attack was that we had to get the cruise ships here, get the spend from the cruise ships on the ground going. And obviously what we're doing now is now we have additional inventory coming on stream. We now have to look at the attractions. As Minister, I have directed my permanent secretary to also execute a study, a review of attractions in Barbados, with a view to looking to see how best we can, one, assess the quality of those, also have a competitive approach, look and see what our customers in the region, what they have to offer, but more importantly, what they're charging. Because if we put additional attractions in the market and we're overpricing ourselves, then obviously that will be a competitive disadvantage. And that will be a competitive advantage to our customers within the same target group. So we're working on that, and we definitely have seen some measure of progress. Of course, the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, as you are doing, and thank you for addressing that issue in the road infrastructure to some of our destinations, some of our attractions, sorry, because that was one of the concerns that we got from the cruise ship operators as well as locals who stay with us on the long stay basis. So those matters are helping us to build out. But the critical point is that there is a significant amount of scope for new investment within the hotel sector. Were it not perhaps a government minister, I will probably tell some former colleagues of us and say these are the opportunities that you can invest and get a wonderful return. But there's a lot of scope for new restaurants, for new attractions that will all redound. And think about it. If you're staying as a visitor in Barbados for 7 days or 14 days, you would want something to do every day. But if you're a repeat customer and you come back to Barbados and there's a new attraction, then of course you will have an opportunity to experience those. So I am in agreement that we have to extrapolate more spend with more increased activities. We see what, for example, the catamarans do for Destination Barbados. It is one, perhaps, of the unique visitor positioning that we can ever ask for. The fact that they will go there and swim and snorkel and dive, I think is a tremendous asset to Barbados. But we have to encourage persons to make greater investments within the tourism plan of Barbados. And I'm pleased with what we're doing. We're also very good at maintaining what we have. The concessions that we've always granted, for example, for the shipping incentives, the incentives if you're in a particular zone, and also as incentives generally for the hospitality sector. So we have the infrastructure, we have the policies that are available to all, and therefore, even though I'm not the minister responsible for investments, I will make a pitch for greater investment in the attractions in Barbados because the destination can do more. Thank you. I was going to ask maybe the leader responsible for the national tourism product to weigh in on this matter. I'll ask Mrs. Nicole Allen to also make a contribution at this point. Nicole?
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, members of this House of Assembly. My name is Nicole Allen, and I am the project coordinator for the National Tourism Program. The National Tourism Program is an initiative that is financed by the Inter-American Development Bank. And in reference to the question that was raised by you, Deputy Prime Minister, one of the components speaks to the development of cultural heritage tourism products, which falls squarely within the realm of our attraction product offering here in Barbados. And under that initiative, we're working on developing a number of products. As we speak, we are working on 2 activities at the Barbados Museum. The Barbados Museum is our national museum, and we all know when we travel that one of the things that we like to look or visit is that national museum of the particular country we're visiting, to have a better understanding of the culture of that destination we're visiting. And we view our museum here in the same manner, but truthfully, it does not always project that, that reputation which it holds, and we know it is our place of patrimony and so on. So two of the interventions we're doing there firstly relates to the physical appearance from the outset. We're starting with the car park, which we have transformed into, we call it a civic space, where the interpretation of Barbados' history begins from the outside, from the time you get out of your car. And we have reached a point where we are about to issue the tender documents for the construction of that civic space. We held, in August of last year, we held a town hall meeting where we shared the plans for that civic space with the members of the public, and they gave us their feedback and so on. And we have made the process through, the application process through the Planning and Development Department to have that started. So we are looking forward to the realization of that product this year. So that's starting on the outside, but we appreciate that there's work to be done on the inside as well. We've been told by our partners at the Barbados Museum and Historical Society that normal practice for exhibits is that they are improved every 20 years, every 2 decades. Unfortunately, for reasons beyond me and beyond other persons, that has not been the case at the museum at this point in time. So we're happy as a national tourism program to lend support in upgrading 3 of the galleries of the Barbados Museum. And those 3 galleries specifically are the All, the Harewood, and the Yearwood, and the Jubilee, my apology, galleries. And what that will do is to allow persons to experience the museum in a new way, in an experiential way. We know that that is the trend in terms of experiences within the tourism sector, where persons are able to say, I've done this experience here in Barbados. You know, they tag it on IG and the other social media spots, and it allows us to also have content that our marketing entities like the BTMI can then place on their websites and other spaces to drive additional traffic to Barbados. So that in itself will bring a freshness to our attraction offering and allow persons who would have visited Barbados before to see what is new within Barbados from an attraction perspective. So those are 2 initiatives that we're working on at the museum. We're also working on an initiative right here within Bridgetown in terms of a visitor center and an art gallery, which will be sited in the old Town Hall building right there on Sheepside, across from St. Mary's Church. And those 2 are also significantly advanced. We're working towards having the tender documents for those 2 spaces issued this year as well. We've already done the preliminary drawings for the art gallery, and we know that that will be a fill-up for that space there. And it's also a tribute to our heritage property, bringing attention to it. You do know that historic Bridgetown and its garrison is a UNESCO World Heritage Property, and one of the key objectives under the National Tourism Program is also to bring attention to that as a product. There are persons as visitors whose, if you want to call it a bucket list, is to make sure they visit UNESCO or heritage properties. And we are working with the Barbados World Heritage Committee to bring that to fruition, as well as the Barbados National Art Gallery, who are our partners in advising us on the technical specifications for that space. So those are 2, and there are others. We also have the Tourist Urban Route. Chairman, I'm winding up. I see you looking at me. We also have the Tourist Urban Route, which is a walking tour, bringing attention to, again, our heritage property. And there's also work along Trevor's Way in terms of recognizing the important transit route that it is for our cruise ship passengers coming into Bridgetown. So it is bringing landscaping improvements there, bathrooms, as well as lighting, because we know that that is a current challenge at night. So those are some of the initiatives being done under Component 1 of the National Tourism Program, which relate directly to your question, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you.
And also to reinforce, we also have a tourism insights tool as part of the National Tourism Program. That tool is also going to give us, commence giving us additional spend, information on spend. So what's happening, we have an arrangement where we can see on spend on the island for Visa and MasterCard persons, Visa and MasterCard card holders, which would therefore allow us to get some additional data with respect to how we are spending. For example, one such report within a quarter can tell us how much money persons on island, that is visitors on island, they're spending on transport or restaurants or entertainment. So that is where we are with that. Once we conclude that, we'll be able, of course, to share that information publicly. But that's one such measure. The other issue, Deputy Prime Minister, is that, and it is consistent with my vision and with my goals in order to get the, improve the spend on island. And it has to move from now trickling down to pouring down. Of course, there are workers within the sector who've done well, and very well. But the idea of us now moving into other areas to cause persons who are small business persons or medium-sized businesses to benefit largely from the tourism sector. Of course, what obtains in oysters is, of course, very good for a country. In order to drive additional spend, we are seeking an approach to have on the west coast of Barbados other attractions, including culinary attractions, for Barbadians within communities to develop and to benefit from. The one good thing, which oftentimes they say is a secret in this business, is that if you ask somebody how well they're doing, they will tell you, I'm doing okay. But if you were to look beyond doing okay, you will know that they're doing exceedingly well. And tourism has a lot of retention on island, but we have to ensure that our attractions are repositioned where necessary. But above that, we also have to look and see where are the new trends in tourism and how Barbados and Barbadians could benefit from those new trends. And I believe once we continue to, in this vein, we will move from trickling down to pouring through and down for Barbadians in the sector. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the responses, both from yourself, Minister, and from Ms. Aline. You know, I come from a background as well of running a rum shop, a very successful rum shop. Pork chops, chicken wings, and rum was what the tourists wanted to, in a sense, experience. And they didn't just want to experience food and alcohol, but they wanted to experience the notion of being able to be in the same space with locals, being able to play a game of pool, being able to take ice out of a bowl that is shared by Barbadians as they're pouring a drink of rum. And I feel very strongly that experiences are the direction in which we must focus, and creating experiences that make us stand out apart from the rest of the region. You go to St. Kitts, you can do a real rare experience. You go to Mexico, I think it's a blowhole experience similar to what we have at Animal Flower Cave. I remember in St. Lawrence Gap as well, we have in the Bath Village area, I used to show people the pots that we catch the fish in. And that became a talking point. I think these are simple things that sometimes we miss, because while we're doing all this stuff at the museum, which is important, I am very concerned that we have to find a way to trickle the benefits, the outpouring of monies into communities. That people who, for instance, are playing road tennis in the Pine have an opportunity to be able to teach tourists when they come to Barbados how to play road tennis. We should be taking advantage of our relatively safe description in certainly amongst the other Caribbean territories. And I think we need to leverage that a lot more in being able to bring those types of experiences to people. I've had the benefit of working with destination management companies, not necessarily directly through the ministry, but indirectly. And I can tell you that there are tremendous opportunities for volunteerism to be able to play an even bigger part in trickling down those monies and experiences into communities. And by that I mean companies who are bringing tourists to Barbados, but within their marketing, they are also encouraging those persons who are coming to Barbados for sun, sea, sand to also give back to the country. And I think that this is an area which, again, with the help of the entities who are already doing it, perhaps the ministry, BTMI, can perhaps look at that a bit more clinical now and find ways to encourage persons to give back more. I give you the example of companies who come to Barbados and they want to give back to the poor. They may want to assist, for instance, my charity with a soup kitchen. They may want to feed people in a community. They may want to paint the steps over at the Parkinson Resource Center. They buy the paint, they're spending money in the local economy, which of course is contributing to the numbers that we are seeing in terms of our growth, but they're also getting to experience working with locals. They're getting to go into communities that ordinarily are not on the radar for when we are marketing in the traditional way. And I just share those examples because I think there's tremendous potential for us to tap into that market. Recently, I'd worked with one of the companies along with BTMI to have a gentleman from Jamaica who spoke to young footballers of the Pinelands Youth Soccer Academy, a young man who is blazing a trail from humble beginnings, but who is blazing a trail as a speaker, an influencer, and was able to encourage and to motivate young men, which I know is very much needed in our society today. But those are simple things that do not cost us a lot. And I certainly would like that we could start to see greater effort being a dedicated person, or as PM says often, having somebody come into work every day to focus specifically on those types of initiatives that allow us to capitalize on our safety, but also the uniqueness of Barbadian culture, of our friendliness, and the things that make us stand out apart from the rest of the region as well. The other area I would want to also highlight is the issue of souvenirs. You go to other Caribbean islands, travel the world, you will see a lot of effort placed on souvenirs. I think this is an area as well, perhaps not just related to tourism, but perhaps with collaboration, that we need to certainly emphasize. I don't know if there's anything specific that is being targeted on our souvenirs, but everybody wants to take away something from a country. You can't take away the same thing all the time, and I think we have to make a more conscientious effort to develop the types of products that are interesting, that speak to who we are as a people as well, but also get people excited about creating things that are different to be able to offer as a product. Because I don't think that our products have changed dramatically over the years. Perhaps it is investment, but I think there's an opportunity right now when we look at what is available across the rest of the region to be able to invest in that. So if you could just answer that question and I'll come back in very quickly.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. You're quite right. There are opportunities abound in Barbados and commercial opportunities for persons to extrapolate the spend from the customers. We had a loyalty, and we do have a loyalty guest program for repeat visitors to Barbados. And I had suggested that in addition to the samples of condiments that we give to our customers who are our repeat guests, that they should have, for example, a canvas painting of various sites in Barbados. I also took the opportunity to press for that because I saw it as an additional form of marketing for the destination. Can you imagine if you're in the winter, dead of winter, and you have visitors to your house and they see that you've been to Barbados for 25 or 50 times or 100 times has happened, and you see your name on a painting and a canvas with a nice area in Barbados being featured on that canvas painting. It would perhaps tell the story, one, that how committed we are to our loyalty guests, but also loyal guests, but how important they are to us. There's also a huge opportunity for us to involve the arts in our tourism program. Oftentimes, we do not see and we do not do as well, for example, as other destinations. But the area with respect to souvenirs and the production of souvenirs, it is one that we share information with because we get a lot of information and we pass it on to relevant agencies. I do agree that we will probably have to form some sort of maybe task force to bring this issue to the attention of others and see how best we can carve out an economic space for those individuals to get into the retail of souvenirs. But we do have some on island and they work well. But yes, there are more opportunities for this commercial venture. What I'd like to do is to ask Marsha Aline, who does a lot of work in respect of this area as well, in terms of channeling feedback. She'll be also in a position to tell you not only about what we've done in Barbados, but what we've done in conjunction with Invest Barbados and other entities in order to promote Brand Barbados and promote our concept and to promote our artists, visual and otherwise, when we're traveling. I would ask Ms. Marsha Aline to weigh in on this matter. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. My name is Marsha Aline. I'm the Chief Product Development Officer with the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc. Deputy Prime Minister, just wanted to respond to some of your comments and questions. And I'll start with the fact that we are actually doing a concentrated effort on tour guide training in the communities, for the communities. And the reason we're doing this is to ensure that the communities are empowered with persons who can take visitors around their various communities, and that we have a cadre of well-trained persons. And we're working with the University of the West Indies to ensure that not only are they trained in the basics of tour guide training, but they also understand the history and heritage of their particular surroundings so that they can be more informed and assist visitors, because we have found in our research that visitors do want to go into communities, they want to live like the locals, and they want to experience life as the locals experience it. So that's one of the programs that we have implemented and that we're continuing. We're also working with the attractions. We are actually in the process of actually forming a workshop specifically for the attractions to ensure that we go through with them marketing efforts. We found in our last survey that a lot of the attractions did not have a presence on social media and did not have appropriate marketing tactics. And at the BTMI, we felt that we could actually assist in ensuring that they are more marketable by adding those layers of marketing efforts within the sector. We also are working with the Invest Barbados and Export Barbados, and specifically around the area of souvenirs and local products, because in order for the local entrepreneurs to be exposed, they need to have an avenue. And so we have done a number of accelerator programs with conjunction with Export Barbados and Invest Barbados and the National Cultural Foundation to expose those very entrepreneurs to opportunities, not just in Barbados, but outside of Barbados as well. And the last entrepreneurs accelerator program we had, we were able to launch, I think, 12 entrepreneurs to be able to actually not just create scale from a local perspective, but also to export their products as well into the international market. We are also in the area of the volunteerism that you would have spoken about. We have a volunteerism program within the BTMI, and what we are working on is to ensure that that is established in a more formalized way, because on a weekly basis, we do get visitors asking us for opportunities to volunteer within schools, to give back in some way. We have found in our research again that the new traveler is actually traveling with a purpose, and there's actually a program called Pack with a Purpose that was established by some visitors, and they pack a suitcase every time they actually come to Barbados. They've been coming here for over 40 visits plus, and they pack a suitcase, and they have a relationship with the St. Lawrence Primary School, and they actually exchange gifts with those students on a continual basis. And what we've been able to do is expand that program to other areas across the island, especially on the West Coast, and we found a lot of the visitors who do come to Barbados, they're packing an extra suitcase and they are bringing very, things that can be used within the schools, but they're also working within the schools to actually repaint schools and give back in some way, form, or fashion. We are also, from a cultural heritage perspective, we have actually partnered with the University of the West Indies to ensure that the taxi operators, especially those at the Bridgetown Port, who do tours on a continual basis, have the expertise and are given the information from a cultural heritage perspective to identify the various cultural heritage areas around the island, so that their tours can also be more impactful and they can tell the story of Destination Barbados as well. I also wanted to share very quickly that we are doing a competitive analysis study, as the minister would have mentioned, on other islands across the Caribbean, to ensure that we are able to look at our attractions and to ensure that we are able to facilitate or to discuss how competitive they are in as it relates to comparing them to what we have on island, so that we can then be able to ensure that we have the right type of experiences that our guests are actually looking for, and the price points are in line with what is happening within the rest of the Caribbean. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you as well. What I'd like to do as well is to ask my Permanent Secretary to weigh in, and following the Permanent Secretary, I'll also ask Mrs. Nicole Aline to weigh in as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Chairman, Ministers of Government, Parliamentarians, Leader of the Opposition, my name is Francine Blackman, Permanent Secretary acting within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. Basically, I just wanted to follow the thread with respect to entrepreneurship and the opportunities that exist within the sector. And I wanted to, last time we were in this honorable chamber, we did mention that we would seek to develop linkages between the Ministry of Tourism and those other sectors. Excuse me. We have actually began work in this area. And I also want to report this morning that we are making baby steps, I should say. And through this effort, we were successful in having, for instance, P&O cruises add 4 additional vendors to their to the persons who supply them with services. And one of those vendors is a young entrepreneur who does jewelry. And Tiffy by Design is the name of her business. And I hope I do not butcher her name, but she's Aishia Tiwi, and there she's been successful as a young entrepreneur to break into that market, to be able to offer her jewelry to the many guests on their cruises. And they are looking at several more to be able to provide that level of exposure. So as Minister indicated, what we're trying to do is to create the opportunities and then be able to work with our counterparts in the other ministries to be able to build those relationships so that our young entrepreneurs can then realize the opportunities that are presented before them. So I just wanted to share that success story. Thank you.
Thank you. And what the permanent secretary referred to is a young lady. What the permanent secretary probably forgot was that the young lady also designed jewelry for the godmother of the P&O ship, which was christened in Barbados last year at the Hayward site. And that obviously is remarkable. And her jewelry continues to be featured very prominently on P&O. And you know, P&O is a high-end cruise catering to more than a couple thousand passengers when they sail through the Bridgetown port. I'll ask Nicole Aline to come in as well on this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Prime Minister, I am happy to hear you speak about the need for us to create experiences in our tourism product that allow our visitors to be part and parcel of that experience. And again, under the National Tourism Program, one of the other areas we're working on is a project at Oistins, and that in its full entirety is an experiential product which doesn't just focus on the Bay Garden area, which is what Oistins, as we know, that's what it is typically known for. You go there to the fish fry and you get what you need. But we've also taken account of the adjacent Barinda Cox Fish Market, as well as the boatyard, which is adjacent to that, and saw the opportunity for visitors to learn part of our cultural practices, whether it is learning to bone fish, going into the fish market and doing that for themselves, whether it is going with one of the fishermen on a Moses or something and, you know, just learn how to cast the net or something of that sort, which is a parcel of our heritage, but allows them to create their own experiences around it. And the other advantage of that is that it creates another revenue stream for those persons. You spoke about the opportunities for income to be generated you referenced the persons in your constituency, for example. So we have those persons who would typically have a revenue stream during a certain period because it's, you know, directly related to fishing, the fishing season and so on. But here's another opportunity that is now created directly through the tourism sector for them to have an additional revenue stream where they are teaching visitors part and parcel of what it is that they do every day, and that in its entirety, as I said, is an experiential product. So we are with you in making sure that whilst we give attention to those other aspects of our product in terms of the physical upkeep and improving them, that we also give due recognition to the creation of experiential products. So we are very much with you on that same wavelength. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and to your team for clarifying the efforts that are currently being made. As I said, I have been speaking about this, the experiential tourism, for quite some time, and I'm happy to hear that there are these efforts on its way. And I hope that more resources can be placed in that direction with a dedicated, certainly, team to be able to tap into that area. My final question, though, takes me to the issue of airlift. I know that, Minister, you raised a number of destinations from which we are going to shortly be seeing more flights coming from. I remember, again, being on the other side and hearing the boast of airlift going and coming from Brazil, for instance. And I don't know that we have, and you can tell me whether we have actually seen the benefits of the opening up of new markets, such as the Brazil market. I know that recently we have tapped into the Cayman market, and we have said that we will subsidize the seats in the interim until such time as, I guess, we start to see an improvement in our numbers. But I don't want to now be government and not ask these difficult questions, because while we have to tap into these markets and we have to open up Barbados to the rest of the world, and we have to sometimes spend money and take a loss at times, I would not want us to at any point be compared to the last administration in that we are tapping into a market and we don't have a proper strategy as to how we're going to build out that market. And so I would want that in also speaking to where we are with Brazil, I would also like you to speak to the plans for Cayman, the strategy, because it is not an airline, I guess, that the traditional American resident would perhaps utilize. So I want to understand where is our strategy, while as an interim measure, we are obviously taking some of the hit in terms of the costs. And do you feel that that market is going to yield us the benefits that perhaps the Brazil market certainly didn't under the last administration?
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. So the strategy for us is to get additional airlift into Barbados. The issue for us, as you well know, we don't have an airline. On the United States routes, we are not paying any revenue guarantees whatsoever. When the question of the Cayman Islands, when Cayman Island Airways was first broached, I said to them, it is a new market that we're exploring. And if you're going to explore a new market, you obviously have to maintain a level of support. Now, we have done the Cayman Islands arrangement because, one, we want to boost arrivals from the Caribbean into Barbados. That's one, as we've done with several other carriers. For us, the Cayman Islands gives us an opportunity to tap into flights from the west coast of Barbados. We have an opportunity whereby we can go to the west coast, California, San Francisco, San Fran, and those areas, to drive traffic through the connection because they have a flight leaving that destination, coming into Cayman, and then connected into Barbados. As I said to the when I spoke at the when I was invited to speak at the BHTA quarterly meeting, new markets do take time. We've seen that with COPA when COPA came to Barbados, and we moved from 1 flight per week, and we now have 4 flights. We are working on additional flights from that, because ideally what I like to do is to, with the team, is to take that to a daily service, and we're beginning to see that it is possible. We don't want to in any way bastardize flights. We don't want to compromise ourselves. And what the airlines have always said to us, you're going to start, we'll grow it, and we'll build it incrementally. So the Cayman Islands flight is an opportunity, even though, yes, and I admitted that we are paying to ensure that we maintain the lift into Barbados. It is a growing market. It is helping us as well with some traffic from out of Jamaica and Cuba and elsewhere coming into Barbados. But beyond that, what is at stake for Barbados in terms of a strategy? If you are living in the Cayman Islands, or those of you who visited Cayman, will know that there's a huge expatriate British population, amongst others, on that island. The challenge for that market is that they don't have any airlift out of Cayman Islands going into the UK. They have to travel to Miami, or they have to go to other destinations. And therefore, the strategy is to have multi-destinational traffic coming into the market. You are living or staying in Cayman, we will leverage an opportunity for you to come to Barbados and spend a couple of days before you then take a direct flight to go to the UK, for example. There's a huge premium there for us, but like I said, objectively, it does take time to build a market. And every market we've gone into, including the ones that are now our major source markets, it has taken time to grow. Obviously, we are putting additional resources in terms of marketing support behind the market, behind the gateway. And very shortly, we will be announcing another marketing initiative exclusively designed to have somebody on the ground there to further build out the strategy for multi-destinational traffic. And that is how you have to do. In business, you have to take risks. And therefore, if you're going to take risks, you will likely get some returns. And for us, it is not a risk. There's a huge Barbadian diaspora living in the Cayman Islands. But beyond that, like I said, There are also connecting points in Cayman that can also drive additional business to Barbados. We are fortunate at the time when we got that flight that there were few other airlines who were prepared to extend the olive branch to us to come into Barbados. And we are grateful for their support, and we will continue to do so. In respect of Brazil, unlike what we've not done is that we've not said that we're going into Brazil as a country. The mistake that was made in the past, which led to, in my judgment, a reduction and ultimately cessation of flights out of Brazil, was because it never had, in my judgment, a Latin American strategy. When I joined the ministry, I said to them, this is a new and emerging market known as Latin America, and we're going in there. You have a director, Corey Garrett, who's based there, living there with a team, and his job is to build out the entire Latin America. He's done a great job, because when you move from one plane coming into Barbados, one flight coming into Barbados per week, now you've moved to 4, and the load factors are good. I recall last year when I went with my team to visit the Copa Airlines headquarters to see their president. He said to me, if we had the aircraft, if they didn't have production delays, he would happily give us a daily service, because he said to us the load factors at that point in time were excellent. So the strategy for us is not to concentrate on one island, one country, within Latin America. The strategy is to concentrate within Latin America. And I'll share this with you. Barbados recorded substantial growth in 2023 from the Latin American market, including Venezuela, which grew by 431%, Brazil, 74%, Costa Rica, 71%, Argentina, 54%, Colombia, 32%, and of course, Panama. So the strategy is there, and we already have within the Panamanian office, as they say, boots on the ground. And we also have representatives in Brazil as well who represent us. And officers who are there responsible for other areas. It's a lucrative market. The spend is huge, and really and truly they have the disposable income to come. And if we, and I'm very confident, we can increase the flights out of Latin America, we do very well. What I haven't said is that very shortly, I'll be going elsewhere to continue discussions with additional Latin American carriers. And the objective, again, is to drive traffic from certain destinations. So I am not defensive. I'm very confident in the team. I'm very confident in our strategy. Touch wood, our strategy has worked thus far in terms of airlift. We've not had a reduction. We're on the growth. On the go for robust growth. And robust growth is what we're going to see. The next winter season in Barbados is going to be absolutely phenomenal. You would have heard people within the associations in Barbados commenting on how we're doing as a destination currently for this winter. You can't even get a booking in a restaurant these days in Barbados. The issue has to be summer. Based on our forward projections, we're doing well. But ultimately, the strategy can't be a one-island strategy in Latin America. It has to be a multi-focused strategy within the Latin American market in order to drive business. The other thing I will say, and I know that this was raised some time ago that we're paying for empty seats, but a former administration spent $42 million in revenue guarantee within a 5-year period. In 5 years, and if you average it out, you will see how much that is. This administration, within 5 years in office, has only spent approximately $7.5 million behind opportunities, some of which we inherited, which we concluded. And I'm also pleased to say that if we have to incentivize airlines to come to Barbados, as we've done in the past, then within our means necessary, we have to do it. And I can't sit here and apologize for it, because it is an excellent strategy, because what it does, it allows you not to have to get airlift today and don't have airlift tomorrow. But the other issue, truth be told, is that you're seeing airlines moving away from that concept.
And like I said earlier in my presentation, there's not one single carrier coming into Barbados from the United States that we are paying a minimum revenue guarantee for. Not one. And I can tell you about the other markets as well. We will do and we will continue to do what is known as behind the gateway marketing. We have to support the market, because if we don't support the markets behind the gateway, then we can't drive the traffic to Barbados and we will lose airlift. But when you look and see also not only United States market, what is happening in the British market, how do you explain that Virgin took a decision to add additional 2 flights to Barbados between January and March, in addition to the other flights? And the growth, and how do you explain that British Airways continues to remain confident in this destination, and they will soon be adding their new luxury Dreamliner aircraft to Barbados? And of course, you know, they'll be celebrating their 70th anniversary this year. And the country will demonstrate how grateful we are to that airline for all they have done around that time when it comes to the 70th anniversary celebrations. So I'm not going to be on the back foot on this issue. I'm going to be on the front foot. We have a lot, the yields that we get, the revenues that we earn from tourism. If we don't drive tourism as an economic ministry, what happens? The country wouldn't have enough foreign reserves to pay its way, and we'll be struggling. Thankfully, we're not in that position today. And thankfully, I know that this administration will beat all records that were previously set in respect of tourism arrivals and earnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And just as I close, again, I want to commend the entire team for the presentation. Certainly the clarity as to what distinguishes us from them, where we are at this present time, but also where we intend to go within the tourism sector. I know that this team would have had to deal with the issues of sewage on the South Coast, perhaps before you came in as the minister, and that could not have been easy. And to hear today the Barbados Hotel Tourism Association speak in a manner that is pleasing to the ears, that they are seeing an uptick in the arrivals, knowing what they have suffered, what they have lost prior to 2018, and knowing that our efforts on coming to office to clean up the South Coast has resulted in them being able now to make a more decent living. In addition to the fact that we've also had this team also take this country through COVID. And I think were it not for the efforts made, particularly during COVID with the cruise industry, and all of the work that we did when other countries turned their back on the cruise ship passengers, I don't think that we will be where we are today. So I know, Minister, you are leading a very important sector, but I know that you cannot do it without the support of those who sit around you. And I really do want to say that we appreciate it. And I know there's much more to be done, but I think that all Barbadians can see the efforts that have been made. And don't be surprised, we've heard apologies in relation to education from the other side. I'm sure that apologies will come in relation to the sewage on the South Coast in tourism. We will hear apologies for roads, and we will hear many more apologies in the coming weeks and months. But I ask you to just press on, because we have to stay focused on the agenda for this administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Yeah, no, he wants to. Lunch is already, right? Yeah. Mr. Chair, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker, and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker. Beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favor, say aye. All members against, say no. I think the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 12.
Question that this honourable chairman be suspended until 12. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chairman stands suspended until 12. This sitting is resumed. We continue with the Standing Finance Committee.
This House is in Standing Finance Committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. First, allow me to start by congratulating the minister. I know that the Honourable Member for Christchurch South seems to take particular offense when we do compliment or commend, but wishes to be at complete liberty to attack and derogate whenever he wants. Sir, in this circumstance, one of the most obvious success stories of this government has been the performance of the Ministry of Tourism. We went through a difficult period occasioned by COVID that saw many tourism-based economies collapsing. But we have rebounded in what I consider to be spectacular fashion. This rebound started under the former minister, Minister Lisa Cummins, but has continued and accelerated to a spectacular, I don't want to say a conclusion, because that would then suggest to the minister that his work is finished, as opposed to we want more in the same vein. But I think it is necessary, sir, for us to recognize the importance of our bread and butter industry and to recognize the sterling contribution by this minister and his team to the recovery and providing that necessary oxygen for Barbados to go forward. So I wish to commend him and his team, sir. I'll just single out a couple of people that I know and that I have worked with, particularly to show how the face has changed. Sir, we are one government, but for too long, government has operated in silos, and ministries jealously guarding their territory and wanted to keep the secrets, and nobody wanted to know, let anybody know exactly what they're doing, and just being very territorial about things that should actually promote the common good of Barbados. I have not found that, sir, with this particular minister, or even his ministry. His PS, sir, was my second PS. And I'm glad to see that she has continued and accelerated and climbed the higher mountain. So even persons under the ministry, under the ambit of the ministry, I have a particularly close working relationship with Mr. Hardy-Bourne, the CEO of Gaia Inc. He has seen me a number of times because I believe, sir, in doing spot checks where things are critical for us. I do spot checks at post offices, I do spot checks at the prison, I do spot checks at immigration, and I do spot checks just at the airport just to make sure that what people are telling me I'm actually seeing. So what Mr. Bourne said about the harmonious interactions and efficiencies at the airport, so I can bear witness to it because he walked me through the entire process. We actually stood there one evening and timed people coming through the door to their going out, coming through the door into immigration to their going out at customs. Sir, Mr. John Marie, who is in charge of the port, I have found him to be very, very cooperative. Anytime we want anything done or we have questions or queries or facilitations required, he has stepped up to the plate. I mean, Ms. Williams with BTMI, sir, is well known to most of Barbados, and I commend her for the sterling work that she's doing as the chair of that board. And I'm just gonna go on one other because I can keep picking apart the ministry and pretty much is all compliments. Ms. Cheryl Carter, who recently, I think, was appointed as the COO for the BTMI, sir. I have known her for a very long time. She is one of those veterans in tourism, and the fact that the UK market has yielded the results that it has yielded speaks to the quality of the person that we are now putting as pretty much the second in command of BTMI. So things look very good for the minister, his ministry, and the organs under him. Sir, I'm particularly concerned about regional travel. I remember, sir, when I was a student at UE, I could get a flight from Barbados to Trinidad for $230. And every so often, sir, when the flight dropped to $198, I mean, the saving of $32 was incentive enough to pop to Trinidad for a weekend. I do believe, sir, that we need to excite and develop even more our regional tourism product. And I just want to know from the minister what is being done to try to bring down the costs of, in some instances, sir, it is cheaper for us to get on a flight to Miami than it is to get to a nearby Caribbean territory. So I'm just wondering what is in the basket, sir, to allow and encourage interregional travel to further develop our overall tourism package.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Let me also, on behalf of the Ministry, thank you for your kind words on behalf of all of those who work with the Ministry and all associated agencies. It is always a good thing for those who are on the front lines to be commended for their performance, and I thank you on their behalf for all that you said about them and the work that they do in the interests of Barbados. In respect of regional travel, you are correct. There has been there's been a challenge in terms of us getting additional airlines to serve Barbados. However, I believe that the firm strategy and correct approach would be to encourage other or existing carriers to build out their footprint within the region. Certainly when you look at the services that we currently offer, were it not for Inter-Caribbean and the arrangement that we have with them, our numbers from within the Caribbean would be much lower. It is a constant work in progress, but the way to achieve it is to work with airlines within the region to encourage them to expand their services within the region. Having said that, the issue has always been the lack of supply of aircraft. And when you're faced with an issue where there's a lack of supply of aircraft and for which there's more demand, then of course, price will dominate in the market. And that is what we've seen. It is not only within the Caribbean market where we've seen that. At one point in time, before we had additional flights, you would have seen based on demand that a ticket to Miami, for example, would have been more expensive than we would have thought it would have been because of the rules of demand and supply. So we are going to continue to work with other airlines within the region. For example, I would have mentioned that we are working with Suriname Airways. We are continuing to work with Cayman, especially on the connections to get people into Barbados. Caribbean Airlines, we are working with them. We would also like them to expand their footprint. But the issue has always been the lack of equipment and the aircraft, the inventory of aircraft that they have. As long as they continue to work out those logistical challenges in respect of the number of aircraft, I believe that we are well positioned. But it also requires out-of-the-box thinking, and this is where the BTNMI continues to do an excellent job for us. Notwithstanding the challenges, we have launched through Caribbean Airlines a number of services. The most recent launch would have been the route to Jamaica, where there is Kingston, Jamaica, where there's demand.
We've also had, for example, an expansion of flights out of St. Lucia and Dominica, and of course, St. Kitts. Before Inter-Caribbean was in the market space, persons wanted to travel from St. Kitts would have had to fly to Miami and then come all the way down to Bridgetown. So it remains a work in progress. Like I said, Suriname Airways, they had an inaugural flight. They have a twice weekly service from Suriname to Guyana onto Barbados. We're going to continue to work with them. As I indicated, we also have to, in order to drive demand to the destination, we have to work around a number of events within the region when there's obviously huge demand for other destinations with the region. So we're going to work with them. Of course, the loss of Leah in no small measure has contributed to some of the lack of equipment that we have operating with the region. The other issue as it relates to the cost of interregional travel, you're well aware that the government of Barbados would have reduced as a budgetary measure last year from June to December the CARICOM service charge, which therefore made Barbados a little bit more competitive, but also that was designed to drive additional traffic to Barbados. And I can tell you based on our numbers that that has worked and worked well. Of course, we can never prejudge a budget, but of course it would be obviously an opportunity for us to look and see how best a similar type of arrangement could be implemented in order to reduce the cost of air travel. So we will continue, Minister, to analyze the market, to create the necessary competitive environment to increase airlift into the destination from within the Caribbean. We're going to have to work with those partners to ensure that it makes sense for them as well, because aviation economics could be a tricky business. And if you don't get your routes right, then it could cause a departure from a particular route. So we're paying attention to it. If we can, we had Air Antilles, obviously that flying to the region, obviously for other reasons, their operation no longer exists. But our opportunity is that we have to look within the Caribbean region. There are some, and I don't want to prejudge what we're likely to do, but there are some opportunities that we are aligning ourselves and working with in order to create greater demand. Like I said, the Virgin flight that we have on the shared arrangement out of Barbados into St. Vincent and Grenada will certainly help us to drive some additional traffic, and because of the size of the aircraft as well. So to answer your simple question, it is difficult. It is not easy, but we are working to achieve what we have to do. But the important thing for us is the adjustment in the CARICOM service charge would have helped us to drive additional traffic to Barbados and as well as reducing costs. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Minister. In another life, I was actively involved in sports. You probably couldn't tell it looking at me now. But I want to know, is the ministry in any way focusing on sports tourism? I guess this is a thing that is across ministries because it involves the Ministry of Tourism. It also involves the Ministry of Sports, Youth and Culture. Sorry, Sports and Youth. I think that we miss some opportunities sometimes in not expanding our contemplation as to what a tourist looks like. We know the tourists we traditionally get, those that come in winter. And I do appreciate all of the business. I do appreciate the influx. And similar to the IMF team, I was trying to book a reservation for dinner and I had great difficulty. Great difficulty. I was annoyed on one hand, but pleased on another. But these are the tourists that come for 6 months of the year. when we are looking at how we fill the other 6 months, because I noticed you said that the summer tourism package, the summer tourism initiative, you're starting it 6 months ahead of time. I see a low-hanging fruit as being those children from U.S. colleges who might be sports teams looking to get off and come to Barbados. I see other teams coming to Barbados. I know we encourage them in winter, but we can also do it in summer for summer type sports. So I'm wondering if there's anything in your estimates or if there's any initiative on the part of your ministry to actually do a major push in relation to sports tourism and not just the traditional areas of sports tourism. Let's actually start to look at some other lesser known sports that might have persons who travel with their families. Let's say shooting, for example. In shooting competitions, you may have one principal person shooting, but invariably they roll with the whole family because the tournaments last over a week or sometimes into 2 weeks if it's different disciplines. So you have the whole family rolling with the one principal person and occupying lots of bed space. So I'm just wondering if that is an area that you're looking at, the non-traditional sporting areas, to pick up some of that slack in the summer months, or just generally, and what is in the pipeline where that's concerned?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I will weigh in on this and then also ask the BTMI Chair and CEO to weigh in as well. What I can tell you, and the Honourable Member for St. John is here, is that we have a sports tourism consultant who works very closely in both ministries. We are fortunate to have a person who's actually spent his career in sports and building out that, but also a person who has understanding of the tourism sector. And what we've set out to do, and perhaps you were listening to some of our strategy meetings when you posed the question. The issue here is that in order to drive, and the summer in Barbados is a different dynamic. And because of that, we see there's a huge opportunity for sporting groups, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, to come to Barbados. And when you have like a netball or a soccer team or football team, as they call it, when you have a cricket team and all these other sporting disciplines come into Barbados, they're not only coming here to Barbados with the coach, they're also going to encourage their families to come, and more often than not, you will have their families coming to Barbados. It is a golden opportunity for us to encourage that segment of the market to come to Barbados with their families for the summer. And that is what we're doing. The officer was recently in the United Kingdom market, where he met with several schools and sporting agencies and other bodies with the objective of driving summer business. Will we get the great majority this summer? The answer is no. But longer term, in terms of the build-out strategy, we anticipate that we will have more. I was on a flight recently, and coming to Barbados were a group of netballers, and they were in large numbers. But if we can bring along with those netballers their families in the summer, then I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity. It's good for the interaction between sport teams, but it's also good for us because those who are coming here must stay in accommodation, and they will have to eat, and they will want to enjoy some of the nightlife and the restaurants that we have in Barbados. So it will certainly be a win-win situation for us. The other area, in order to build out summer, we have to look to the Gulf states, and that is where we've placed an emphasis on in terms of trying to ramp up that market to the extent possible that we can get business here. We all know in the Gulf states, it is usually very, very, very hot in the summer. And a lot of the Gulf, the people who live in the Gulf, would leave the Gulf and go into United States, United Kingdom, they go to Paris, they go elsewhere. And part of our marketing focus that we've placed, which is again a part of our strategic direction, is that when they leave the Gulf and they go into Paris or Greater Europe, the opportunity exists for us to lure them to Barbados as a second destination for them to come to explore and to enjoy. And that is one of the objectives that we continue to work on. We have Donata, a company that represents islands and countries on the ground who are working with us. Very shortly, we will have a resource from Barbados or from within the market, in the market, in order to drive business from the Gulf states to Barbados. We are obviously looking at another strategy and how best we can build out maybe additional airlift, but is at a very preliminary stage at the moment. But the simple question to answer before I allow the others to weigh in, it has to do with what we want to do for summer. And no longer are we prepared to accept that the summer is the summer and that we have to wait for whatever has to come. We have to build the market, and that is exactly what we're doing. The UK team, as I indicated when the consultant was there, working through with a number of institutions, is a great opportunity for us and for that market to drive additional business. We are also working with a number of football clubs. We're exploring opportunities with Wimbledon as well for marketing of Barbados during the summer, so we give people that appreciation for what we have to offer. And there's several other initiatives. But I will pause. I will ask the chairman of the BTMI, who's here with us, as well as the CEO, to also weigh in on the opportunities for sports tourism. But I'm very confident in the individual that we have working with us. I'm very confident in the team that we have to support this drive. And with the additional seats that we're getting out to the United Kingdom market this summer, it therefore means that we have to ensure that our marketing activities are in order to generate the required airlift capacity for Barbados and to maintain it as well. Because as I indicated, BA will be putting on this on the London route, a bigger aircraft, in order to facilitate the movement of such traffic. But I'll ask the chairman to weigh in on this matter, the BTMI to weigh in on this matter as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Williams, Chair of Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc. Just following on from my minister, we looked at sports tourism in two lights. We looked at it as in who do we partner? Are we our destination, a sporting destination? And we also looked at how to drive business during the summer season, or what we call the low season periods, where we thought that this would be the ideal way to bring business to Barbados and tourism to Barbados through sporting events. So first, for my board, we started to look at what our destination can offer big sporting events. So you would have seen most recently that we signed a deal with PGA. And whilst we do not have an actual PGA tournament, what they have done is actually signed the first, Barbados is now the first tourism destination that they will promote at all of their events, corporate as well as the actual tournaments. You would see that it would give us opportunity for the players to come down, PGA players to come down, build content out of Barbados, Netflix opportunities, things like that, showcasing what we have to offer as a destination, a golfing destination. We also looked at our partnership with the Royals, and with partnership with the sports, Ministry of Sports, to look at how they can develop not only us sponsoring them, but what they can give back to our communities. So you would have seen that Royals then went in with the female cricketers and went into the communities and start to train and teach our young upcoming female cricketers. So those are some of the initiatives we're doing. As a sporting event during this season, we just had our sailing week. We're now going to have our fishing tournament that is earmarked to bring in 45 ships, fishing vessels all around the Caribbean as well. And some will fly and some will come down with their actual boats. So that event actually plays host to about 800 persons. That does very well for us. We also will be seeing the surfing. We have partnered with the World Surfing League to have a QS 5000, and that is the highest ranking qualifying series before you can get into the World Championships of Surfing. And that in itself has been very much a success for us. We are the first Caribbean island to be able to offer such an event. It's normally done in Hawaii and California, and Barbados is playing host to some of the world-class surfers, and that's going to happen in March. And they right now they're closing their entries, but last they spoke to me, they were almost at 850 persons coming. So to continue that trend, obviously we know we have World Cup cricket as well, and we have motor racing. So you're going to see that every month we are pushing sports tourism, not only as a destination, but also for the sporting clubs. As the minister well mentioned, the board had brought on a consultant to help us work with sports tourism, and that person has been going to speak into cricket clubs, not only the larger cricket clubs, but also the college cricket, not only in the UK, but in the US. So we are feeling that you'll soon see, not for this period, but definitely for the next summer period, you will see sporting clubs like swimming, tennis, and football, as well as smaller cricket clubs come into Barbados, and they normally bring their families with them. They normally bring teachers and family members along with them. So we are moving in that right direction, and I will give way to my CEO. Thank you.
Shelley, not consultant. Not the board has hired a consultant. We're working through with the shared resource with the Ministry of Tourism, just for the record of Parliament, so it'll be clear. The other issue is that, before I give way to the CEO, what we also have to recall is that as we execute our marketing programs, we will have a number of initiatives being executed in the market. And the marketing team will be structuring not only a summer program for what we consider to be the leisure traveler, but also packaging it in such a way that we have a sports tourism package that would allow persons to come here and immerse themselves into what we have to offer in terms of sporting activities on the island. Of course, there are people who would want to come and see where his excellent cigar fistovers would have come from in terms of a destination. There's some people who want to come and see the Mecca, known as Kensington Oval. And then there are others who would want to perhaps come to Barbados and understand where the likes of the late Malcolm Marshall and other sporting legends that we have in Barbados. In fact, last October, when we were at World Travel Market, you would have seen the theme that we would have adopted at World Travel Market, where it had the legends meeting the legends. And we were fortunate to have with us at our booth, or on the stand as they call it, or pavilion as they call it, Collis King, former West Indies batsman, as well as Joel Garner, that famous West Indies fast bowling great. and they were there with us on the pavilion at World Travel Market, and the response was huge. And we took time along with our consultant to drum up additional support by but working with the legends of Barbados in order to build out. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm confident that the consultant that was hired by the Ministry of Youth and Sports, working very closely with us, will make a significant impact. And the other strategies that we have planned, like I say, from the Gulf states, will go a long way in trying to shore up. Essentially, the goal is to ensure that we can build a stronger summer business in Barbados using a variety of tactics. But I'll pause and I'll ask the CEO of the BTMI to come in and/or the marketing person. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Following on from comments from the Honourable Minister and my chair, I just wanted to go a bit deeper into some of these strategies that we utilize to take the opportunity of sports tourism. What we realize from our research is that sports usually captures a huge audience in one place at a time. So globally, we have sought to partner with key sporting organizations to make sure that we take that opportunity which is at hand. So across tennis, NFL, football, etc., we have an audience that we can market to at that point in time. And I think that gives us a huge amount of visibility. It's very impactful because we know sports is very heavily watched across the globe. And, we've sought to take the opportunity at hand. Added to that, what we have done in our negotiation is to make sure that it doesn't end there. So one of our partnerships, for example, with an NFL team would see us not only having the opportunity to do in-stadium marketing, but also benefit from off-season. So those players will be invited to Barbados when they are preparing for the new season, and they would do their preparations here, and as a part of that, they would usually share on social media some of the content of them actually in Barbados, enjoying our beaches for preparation to train, enjoying some of our facilities, so persons around the globe who follow them will see they're in Barbados and they're actually using what we have here, both naturally and built. In fact, I think last year, for those of us who follow football, we would have seen one of the EPL football stars here actually at the Wilde football turf, posting content of him in Barbados, preparing for the start of the new season. So we think that that content throughout the summer and those persons actually bringing their families here to prepare for the new season is another aspect that we utilize sports tourism. And finally, I think we have locally strategically worked closely with the Ministry of Sports and other partners to make sure that across the summer period, and especially in those low periods, we have sporting activities on the ground that drives that visitation and also drives that Barbados, the eyes to be on Barbados at that point in time. So for example, my chair would have mentioned Rally and PGA, but we also will have a Legends Cup, European Legends Cup golf here in May. We will also see the CPL, which is very big in the Caribbean here in August. And also we will see Carifta, the triathlon being here at the end of the summer period as well. So those are just some examples as to how we utilize sports tourism in our marketing activities. Thanks.
Last question. As they say, asking for a friend. Minister, I believe that our first tourist should be a Bajan, right? I had an interesting phenomenon when I went to China, and I was doing all the touristy things in China, and I realized that the bulk of people around me were Chinese. And most of the Chinese never leave China. So their tourism product is aimed at attracting persons into the major cities, into Beijing, to see the tourist attractions as well. So their first tourists, literally, they pitch to their people who live in the country, who would otherwise never leave their village. Now, China is different to Barbados. Barbados is way smaller than China, although we seem to think we're the same size. I noticed, for example, Chaka, Harrison Cave. Harrison Cave rebranded itself, and their obstacle course and their zip gliding thing and zip lining thing, a lot of Bajans are actually doing it and posting the pictures, so it's getting a lot of traction within Barbados from Bajans. So I don't think it's going to suffer in the same way a lot of other tourist attractions are going to in the, what we call the downtime, the summertime. I wonder what initiatives does your ministry have and the organs within your ministry have to pitch in at some internal tourism. It may not yield an increase in arrivals, but it may actually help to prop up some of those aspects of the tourism product that would otherwise be suffering come summer. And if I get even more specific, we used to have a program of staycations where the staycation rate was literally half of what the overseas rate was. That in summer you pitched it. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have your hotel plant closed up in summer and the tiles popping up and the pipes bursting because they're not being used. And I do think this is an initiative we should really look at considering to keep some money circulating in that aspect of the economy, which may not result in people having to be laid off in the numbers that there are in the summer months. Encouraging Barbadians, encouraging restaurants to run specials that would attract Barbadians, encouraging Barbadians to go to restaurants. And lastly, this is all interlinked, lastly, we've come a long way, but I still see, I go a lot. And some Barbadians seem to believe it is beneath them to serve Barbadians, right? Some Bajans believe that we pull out the fake accents and we put on all the pleasantries if it is a tourist. But when a Bajan comes into the same establishment, that Bajan gets a different type of treatment. Now, I'm glad to say it is not as prevalent as it once was, but I'm raising it because it happened and I witnessed it within the last 2 weeks. Now, what is going to sell Barbados? We are an expensive jurisdiction. We are an expensive destination. So our service must match our price point, and it must be across the board. I do believe there should be an initiative somewhere that aims at training and reinforcing that service is not servitude, reinforcing across the country, not necessarily only in the tourism sector, but across Barbados, that tries to raise what we consider the standard level of service that anybody going into the registry, going into the polyclinic, going into Harrison Cave, going into wherever, a restaurant, that Barbados stands out because of the service we deliver. And to me, this is an easy one. This costs the money and training, but it's an attitudinal thing. And for the time it takes hold, then the persons who don't deliver that service at that standard are going to, by attrition, they would drop out and drift out by their own attitude. So I'm just wondering if there's anything in there for training or a program to promote good service values in Barbados and a proper work ethic. And also in relation to encouraging internal tourism. And finally, as I said, asking for a friend, summer is coming up, pushing a program for staycations that allow Barbadians to chill out, enjoy themselves, relax in the summer months, and not have to pay the plane ticket to go somewhere else to do it.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I do agree that staycation is one of the features within our summer offerings in Barbados. I don't have any information in respect of the number of staycations or the number of Barbadians who actually purchase staycations, but what I can tell you, based on what I hear, is that a number of hotels have reported some measure of success in respect to staycation programs. I'm also aware, particularly in the summer, that you have a lot of locals who go into the restaurants in Barbados, as they do sometimes in the summer once they can get in. And the issue for us has to be, how do we arrange or get appropriate rates for persons living here to have a staycation? Now, the setting of rates, as you would well imagine, is not within the reach of the ministry. That is really a hotel decision in respect of how they schedule or plan their rates for the summer. Of course, I believe that there is more than enough room inventory in Barbados for the hoteliers to benefit from this particular segment of the market. It is growing, and you can tell it's growing because as you move around Barbados, there are people who will tell you that they have visited a hotel or they have taken their families for a weekend, and particularly during certain periods. I believe it was last year when there was a newspaper report where Barbadians were saying that they could not get into a hotel in Easter because the hotels were fully booked. So that is the challenge that we are faced with. As we build out the summer and we pursue our strategies, this is even going to be more difficult of a task, because if the revenue managers manage well, it therefore means that it is possible that the numbers that we saw in hotels for staycation would probably not be as great as we would like them to be. I support your position in respect of training and development. I've worked in the hotel sector. I'm a firm believer in it, and I have executed training programs myself. What we have to do is that we have to ensure that the human resource element within the hotel setting remains a critical element in respect of the delivery of training. We have the National Transformation Initiative, and they're also utilizing a number of trainers and presenting a number of training courses to the public at large, and there are programs that are specifically catered to the tour hospitality sector. We also had more recently the launch of Florida International University's Chaplain School of Hospitality in Barbados, another opportunity designed to train persons within the hospitality sector and to allow those persons in turn to become better at their jobs. Training for me, as I indicated in my open remarks, is absolutely paramount. If we are going to maintain our competitive edge, we will have to continue to train and to retrain. And that is something. I must also take this opportunity to thank the hoteliers who would have done an inordinate amount of training of their staff and preparing them not only for the winter season, but also during summer. It is an opportunity for which they must be, at all times, be commended for the investment in training. And I want to say from this honorable chamber that I will wish for them to continue to build out their training activities for their staff. Training does make a difference, not only to the destination, but training does make a difference in the hotel itself. Be it upselling in terms of if you're in an EP property or if you're in an all-inclusive property, upselling the services and tours that we have to offer. Barbadians are known for their warmth, for their friendliness, and generally for their almost spontaneous hospitality. And that is a hallmark that we have to keep
But at the same time, we have to train the workers because they're changing dynamics within this sector. Obviously, training when the hotels are difficult, there are times when obviously workers can't be released. But what we are working and what we have to achieve in Barbados is to have a protocol essentially designed with the Barbados Workers Union to ensure that there is a release program and a release program with pay for workers to attend training seminars. Training, like I said, is a huge benefit to the employer, and therefore I don't believe this will be the issue. Already, when training programs are held at hotel establishments and restaurants in Barbados, the workers are usually paid. So I don't believe that will be a major issue. But I support your proposition that training and retraining must be a critical component of our human resource management, and also a very critical component in us maintaining our competitiveness in the market space. Maybe I should ask Marcia Aline of the BTMI to weigh in on this issue as well. Marcia?
Thank you, Minister, Chairman. Honourable Minister, for your question as it relates to the first tourist being a Barbadian and the programs that we've put in place to ensure that the domestic tourism is actually has captured our interest. The Minister has spoken, I think, quite extensively on the training programs, and I'll just speak briefly to the programs as it relates to domestic tourism. We implemented at the BTMI a program called These Fields and Hills that we implemented, I think, in 2022, where we were able to encourage Barbadians to go out through the length and breadth of the island through a very innovative and creative program called the Tourism Treasure Hunt for Barbadians. And we were able to see a number of Barbadians actually traverse the island and learn a lot about the product on the island. And that program was designed specifically not just to teach them about Barbados, some of the areas that they beforehand would not have been familiar with, but also to encourage them to frequent the attractions that we have on island as domestic tourism as well. We want to continue that program, and this year and beyond, we will be continuing it through encouraging Barbadians to be part of that, to visit the attractions. We've actually written to some of the attractions and asked them to give favorable consideration to rates that are, consistent with locals. You see it happen in places like Orlando, where the locals are actually given preferential rates. And so we've written to the attractions, and over the summer period, a number of them do offer specials for tourists who are locals throughout the island. And so that's what we actually do in terms of encouraging Barbadians to actually visit the attractions and participate in the activities that we have on island.
Thank you very much, Marcia. And Minister, to your point, in terms of, and I'll share this statistic with you, the Harrison's Cave Eco-Adventure Park. In 2022, we had approximately 15,000 locals going there. And in 2023, and that's coming out of COVID, and in 2023, we've had close to 19,000. And when you look at the number of long-stay tourists, and you look at the number of locals, and they also have cruise ship passengers who go through there, it tells the story that you're referring to, that there is a market, and particularly during the summer periods, you can see that the locals do play an important part in contributing to the numbers of customers who go through. And I'm sure that we can replicate this in the restaurants, in the water sports. We can replicate this in the hotels where you see a number. Whereas we have the numbers, for example, the Harson's Cave Eco Adventure Park, we really need to work now on a data collection to see how best we can collect data to see how many locals are purchasing packages to go into a hotel for a staycation. That is something that we have to work on, and I give you the assurance that we will work on that as we look to see the composition of visitors, cruise ship passengers, and locals to really substantiate the point. I thank you.
Minister, I want to thank you and your team for a very thorough presentation and for answering my questions. I must necessarily pause here because I've reached 3 questions and I believe you're overdue for lunch. But rest assured, I may actually tack you back this afternoon as it is my privilege so to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:30 p.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.